All right, welcome. Oh, shoot. Welcome, everyone. This public meeting of the Board of Education for December 12th, 2023 is called to order. All items being considered this evening are posted on the PPS website under the Board and Meeting tabs. This meeting is being streamed live on PPS TV service website and on Channel 28, and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the website for replay times. All right. Good evening and welcome. For those who are tuning in and here in person, we have been fortunate to enjoy a performance by the Jefferson Dancers. We will have, that's right, let's give them. We will have opportunity to enjoy one more number, but before then, I just wanted to share a few reminders. In order to ensure safety, please keep walkways and aisles clear. We also ask you to be considerate to those around you this evening. All right, Superintendent Guerrero, would you like to introduce the guest this evening?
I would love to. Good evening, directors. When folks found out the Jefferson Dancers were going to be here, even the media cameras showed up. So here tonight is, in fact, our acclaimed Jefferson Dancers, joined many familiar to most of us, their instructor, Steve Gonzalez. Where are you? Are you in the crowd? Get down here. We got to pour some flowers on Mr. Gonzalez. This is his 25th year teaching and directing the Jefferson Dancers. 25 years. So besides being the oldest running dance company in Portland, the Jefferson Dancers, as you know, they're just the elite dancers of our nationally recognized dance department at Jefferson High. Just a vibrant, vital part of our arts community. To tell you a little bit about those who may be unfamiliar with the program, the dancers for the company, they audition each spring. Those selected make a commitment to perform with the group for a school year. Most of the dancers continue to return annually and become more senior members as they complete their years at Jefferson. They've presented and performed at dance festivals nationally and at the international level in faraway countries like France, Germany, Italy, England, and China. Mr. Gonzalez, tell us a little bit more about this fabulous group of young adults.
I think you said it all, but hi everyone. Thank you for having us. I'm Steve Gonzalez. I'm so proud of my group of dancers, Jefferson Dancers. For those of us who don't know who we are from Jefferson High School. This is our 48th season. The longest running dance company here in Portland. Yes, super excited. We performed earlier tonight. We did a piece by Michael Monday, an alumni of Jefferson Dancer, called No Names, Just Vibes. And now we're gonna perform another piece for you, choreographed by Lauren Smith, who is our modern teacher over at Jefferson, and this piece is called Without Words. But before I introduce the dancers, I would like to bring our team captain, Nia Brown.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for having us first and most of all. I have prepared a little speech called Every Last One of Us. The goal of the Portland Public Schools Master of Education Plan is to increase equitable access to high-quality arts education for all students, every last one of us. The heart of Portland is in the arts, and we, the dancers, musicians, and actors, and visual artists carry that beat. As we share our art with you, we are developing our unique voices and perspectives. Thank you for your attention and for your continuing support of high-quality arts education for all of us, every last one of us. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the show.
I just want to let everybody know she's a ex-Albina alumni kid too. Just let y'all know.
Just saying.
Yeah, just saying. All right, let's give them another hand. Jefferson Dancers. All right, in May of 2021, the board adopted a process by which board members could be considered for board leadership positions. The resolution states that in order to be considered for a board leadership position, board members must notify board managers in writing by December 1st that they plan to run for board leadership in the January election. Then at the first board meeting in December, which is tonight, the board chair will publicly confirm board members who are interested in serving in leadership. So the two board members who consider for leadership, one is me for chair and Director Green for vice chair. The board will vote on board leadership at the January 9th board meeting, the first board meeting of the calendar year.
Chair Hollins,
Yes.
I'd just like to thank both of you for running again. Appreciate that.
Anytime.
No further nominations that I'm aware of.
All right. All right, so I do have a statement that I want to read out, and I'll just start. I would like to first address our resilient students, our amazing staff, and our supportive community. We have truly experienced a significant amount of trauma, adversity, anxiety, and unpredictability over the past month. We were brought to our lowest and highest points by the contract negotiations, the actions leading up to the strike, the school closures, and the deficiency of funding from our state. Everything that has transpired has been placed for me in my personal jar of forgiveness. I sincerely believe that this is possible for each of us. Now we have to prioritize healing and direct our attention towards the well-being and educational goals of our most precious assets, our children. Our students truly rely on our unity, as it is only through our collective efforts that we can successfully strive towards becoming one of the leading school districts in the nation. I genuinely believe that we have the ability to accomplish this, and it can only be achieved if we work together. We are embarking on a new and exciting chapter here at PPS. We have and are going to continue to take the time to listen to the valuable input from our students, teachers, parents, staff, fellow board members, and our entire community. Now it's time for us to take meaningful action. We must ensure that this momentum we have does not slow down. We appreciate the importance of fostering meaningful and open relationships with our community members, stakeholders, staff, and family. Our goal is to launch a number of cooperative projects with the involvement of the whole community as a top priority. We acknowledge that building strong relationships will require mutual trust, transparency, accessibility, and a significant investment of time. I truly believe that by engaging in these collaborative discussions, we will have the opportunity to develop a deeper understanding of one another. This increased understanding will undoubtedly facilitate our ability to work more effectively and foster a stronger sense among us. Also, I would like to express my gratitude to the superintendent for the work he has accomplished throughout the years. When he joined the district in 2017, there was instability and a series of significant challenges facing our district and our students. He has done a remarkable job in establishing a solid foundation which we are grateful to build upon. Through the visioning and strategic planning process, he has truly brought clarity to our district and a student-centered vision as we as a district deeply appreciate and wholeheartedly embrace in our work to enhance the educational experience of our students. I am incredibly grateful for your invaluable support during challenging times, including the unprecedented pandemic and the first ever strike in our district. The dedication and commitment you have shown to our district and our city are truly remarkable. It is inspiring to witness your unwavering passion to ensure the success of every single one of our children, despite the challenges and the lack of recognition that often comes with this role. You have remained unwavering in your drive and focus on making a difference for our students, especially in a city that is just now undergoing a process of acknowledging and addressing its own historical racial and discriminatory practice, which have historically treated leaders of color with hostility and contempt. So it's it is heartwarming for me to recognize and appreciate a remarkable leader of color. I extremely appreciate your exceptional work, sir. Thank you. So I'm gonna leave it, open it up to the board if they want to say anything, any additional words as well.
Didn't know I'd be able to do this, but I just, as a new board member, I have been welcomed by you. You made it very comfortable for me to come in and talk to you about things that I'm concerned about, and you've shared things that you're concerned about. I know that you care so much about this district, and I'm really, really sorry that you're not going to stay with us. But I understand, and I just want it to be known out there everywhere that I just think you're just a wonderful superintendent, and I'm so glad I was able to work with you, even though it's been such a short time. Thank you.
Can I go next? I also want to commend you for your service to our community, your unwavering commitment to kids and especially kids of color, your love of the arts and your insistence on establishing an arts pathway for kids as we see the impacts of. It's a way to keep kids in school. It's a way to keep their bodies active and to have allow them to express themselves. I know whatever you do, and I know I'm a big fan of self-care. So I'm hoping that you follow in my lead and take that road trip. You roller skate would be great too, and let me know if you want to go disco roller skating sometime. I can't promise I won't fall, but I again want to just really appreciate you for your commitment to this community, for your commitment to our kids, and your tenure, which is twice as long as most superintendents. So, thank you.
I'll go next, and I'm going to go back into the time machine to May of 2017. Yeah, I know it. In dog years, it seems like it was way longer than 6 years ago. I'd been just elected to the board after 10 years off the board, and the district was seriously off track. So for those of you who are here, who were there at the time, would know that we'd had a superintendent departure a year earlier due to the lead in the water crisis. We'd had crumbling buildings, senior staff leaving, a high-profile failed superintendent recruitment search by the previous board, an interim superintendent who had finished up his one-year commitment and was going to be leaving, so we had another interim. We had a bond measure that was short by about $100 million, misconduct by a board member, a divided board. I'm just going to keep going, just so you remember all this. Persistent achievement differentials for our students of color, many open labor contracts, including a PAT contract that had been open for more than a year, and of course, inadequate funding from the state. So that was the scenario in which we were heading into a new superintendent recruitment. And before I'd taken the oath of office, I was tapped to lead the new superintendent search team. And we had a lot of discussions as a board, whether it was the middle of the summer after the previous board's failed search, about whether we should get another interim, like the third one, or whether we should just go for it, because we couldn't, the question of whether PPS could survive another school year without a permanent leader, and we knew it was not the optimal time to recruit a new leader. But we also knew that we couldn't wait. So we didn't want to wait till the next hiring cycle, which generally starts in January. And so we knew that we had less than, if we wanted to hire a superintendent before the start of the school year, we had less than 2 months to stand up a national recruitment and a local recruitment to hire our next leader. And despite all of Portland's issues, and I think it's a really tribute to this community, that we still were attractive despite all those things that were happening, because this is a school community that this is a community that supports its public schools and has been there for PPS in the good times and the bad times. And because of that, and I think also because we're pretty good salespeople, or at least to Guadalupe, we had a really competitive field of qualified candidates, some local, others national, and we had 2 national superintendents of the year as part of that recruitment. And we didn't sugarcoat our challenges. I mean, we couldn't have done that even if we'd wanted to, because it was well documented, although we did ask candidates not to follow the daily going-ons in the district during the recruitment process. Instead of sugarcoating them or pretending they didn't exist, we presented it as a challenge to the next leader. And as somebody who wanted to be part of building back a great school district, we were really clear that we did not want a caretaker superintendent or someone who was looking to coast into retirement, because this wasn't going to be the job for them. So given that, the board identified Guadalupe early on as someone who could possibly be that leader who was up to the challenge. So 3 weeks before school started, 40 days after me and 2 other board members were sworn in and we had a new board, we announced on August 9th at Sabin Elementary the appointment of our new superintendent. And we were really glad at the time that you said yes to the opportunity and to the challenges. And I'm wearing the shirt tonight in your honor because the day after we hired you, we went to go visit the new rebuilt Roosevelt High School as part of, like, this is the opportunity of coming here. We were going to be opening Roosevelt, Franklin, and Kellogg all in a very short time period, and the superintendent, although he didn't start till later in September, visited all those schools, was there for the schools' openings. And I've got to say, for those who were here that first year, and looking around, I see some of you who are here, Liz, Jonathan, Sharon, Roseanne. It was a crazy year. We had board meetings that went till 3 in the morning, just the size of the agenda to move things. And as the board chair at the time, I saw close up the heart that you brought to the work and the passion and the time and the energy that you put into the role. I mean, those first years were such a heavy lift to get PPS back on track. The rebuild in some cases was joyful, in some cases it was painful. But you built a strong team, and working with the board, you helped us get back on track and have been building since then. And I know we're going to have more opportunities before you leave to talk about the since then. But tonight I wanted to just thank you for saying yes, for helping PPS get back on track, and then also setting us up so that we're well positioned, because all those things I read about what was happening in the district, we don't have that. We're probably in the best position we've been in for 20 years to hire a new leader for the school district. So you've left the district in a good position, and you've moved the ball down the field, and I know that we're going to be in an even better place as we move ahead because of the foundation you built. So thank you again for saying yes.
So we have to pause for a minute because our live stream has went down. So we're going to do about 5 minutes? All right, so we will pause until further notice. Hopefully it'll be like 5 minutes. Okay. All right. All right.
Keep my pen.
No, I'm giving it back.
All right, look like, hello? Can we hear me? Can we hear me? Hello? Did he fix that? Oh, here we go. All right. I want to thank everyone for their patience as we got our IT figured out now.
Do I need to give my comments?
No.
Just kidding.
All right.
I'd like to.
Would anyone else have comments that they would like to share?
My grandmother said to only say goodbye once, and we have them for 60 more days, so I'll have more to
There you
say
go.
towards the end.
All right. Well, the next is the superintendent's report.
Well, buenas tardes, directors, and to the PPS community. Thank you for the kind words. I wasn't expecting that. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I know I have a little time before I hang up my PPS hat, but I did want to take a few moments at this first public board meeting since my announcement, the announcement of my departure yesterday, just to say thank you, an initial thank you. I'm so grateful for this incredible privilege and opportunity to serve as your superintendent for the last 6.5 years. I was listening to Director Brim Edwards, and it dawned on me that's why I'm tired. As I shared with all of you yesterday, it feels that now is the right time and juncture for me to pass the baton to the next leader of PPS. I'm sharing my decision at this time, knowing that our district, and I just heard our directors acknowledge this, knowing that PPS is in a strong position. It benefits from a capable leadership team, dedicated educators and staff all across the school system, and I know that they're all committed to student success. And we have in place the building blocks that are going to continue to propel the district to the next level, I believe. I'm confident that the pursuit of the vision that our community articulated back in 2018, that it will continue to inspire all of you as it has for me. I have such an incredible respect and admiration for all the people that make up our school system. First, foremost, our talented students. The last few years have been particularly challenging, but yet time and time again, our students, you've proven your brilliance, your resiliency. Thank you for having a strong voice, for being the leaders that will make Portland, Oregon, and our society better. To our dedicated educators and staff, thank you. Thank you for showing up each and every day, for creating those positive learning experiences for the more than 44,000 students in our district. You make our schools the incredible places of learning that our students deserve. Thank you for creating all of the engaging moments, the care and connection that are so critical to our students. To our leaders, both at the school and at the district level, gracias. Thank you for your partnership, for tirelessly striving to ensure equitable opportunities and outcomes across every one of our schools. It's because of your leadership that we will continue to advance these priorities here at PPS. And I'm excited for what the future holds and what you'll accomplish next. I'm also grateful to our broader community and our community partners in this work for continuing to step up in a multitude of ways to support our students and our school community's success. And lastly, to our school board, I've really enjoyed the opportunity to get to know and work with each and every one of you. I think I've had the privilege of partnering with 14 board members, the 7 of you included, to get along this journey and to this point. I'm grateful for your trust and support, and most importantly, for the opportunity granted to me to serve and try to make a positive impact here in Portland. So I remain optimistic about the future of PPS and its students because of all of the people who make up this community. I know I intend to dedicate a good portion of my remaining time continuing to visit our wonderful schools, letting everyone know how much I've appreciated their work and their commitment during my time here. We've come a long way as a school system, and frankly, in a relatively short amount of time. I believe we have a strong foundation. It's been set for the school system's next chapter. And I'll just keep it at that for tonight's message. Thank you, directors. Thank you.
Thank you. No. Please don't do that. That's so inappropriate. Yeah. All right.
But we have students in the room that we'd like to show and model civic engagement.
Model. Okay, we're not about to get into a conversation. We're not getting into a conversation. We said what we said. Now it is what it is. So, student Director Silverstein, would you like to do your report? Yep.
Okay, so starting off, students, including myself, have been adjusting to the transition back to school. It's coming with its fair share of difficulties, but it's also really inspiring to see the community come together. Obviously, there are still lots of issues. I don't really think this is something that we can just move on from, the strike. Do I think we need to look to the future? Absolutely. But these wounds will persist. A Band-Aid and the desire to keep walking do not stop collective bleeding from the thousands in our community. It's time to have the hard discussions, and I really mean discussions. A collaborative process that includes all voices. Where do we want to go from here? And what can we learn from this? Then, of course, the recent news. First of all, I want to say thank you for your service. You filled an incredibly difficult role and made it your own. I hope that you're able to look back at your tenure and your achievements with pride. And then to the students, I want to acknowledge that there's going to be a wide variety of feelings. I've already heard that a lot from my peers. More uncertainty is exhausting. So I wanted to provide what information I do have. So as we proceed with the leadership change, the following actions are going to take place. Tomorrow, there will be a special session to review the process to identify and appoint an interim superintendent. We'll evaluate and select a superintendent search firm. Then we'll start our executive search for a new superintendent in January with the target of hiring a new leader for the spring so they're in place by the start of the next school year. A communication plan will be developed to ensure that our community is kept informed about each phase of the process. So I will be participating in this process, and I am committed to ensuring student engagement in it. Look for upcoming student outreach because I am here to represent all of you. And I want to finish on a positive note because I think that that is something that we're going to need in the future and obviously now. So speaking with district student council members today, they informed me about different student events that are student-led but benefit the whole community. McDaniel has their winter craft fair tomorrow from 3:30 to 5:30. And then Ida B. Wells also has a student market of sorts tomorrow. They're both their second annual ones, and that one is starting at 4 p.m. And then Jefferson has a food pantry. I believe it's during school hours on Fridays. Kendall said she believes it starts at 11. And then Grant is hosting a donation drive for Raphael House. It's continuing through next week. They're looking for self-care products, so like black hair products, menstrual products, that type of thing. And then Franklin has FHS Gives Back. Donations will close December 15th, and you can see what they're looking for in the FHS Leadership link tree in their Instagram bio. Students, if you ever have anything you want me to share, please email me at fsilverstein@pps.net. This is my time to speak about what's important to you all. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have student comments. Ms. Bradshaw, do we have any students signed up?
We do. Hiomi McCollister, Bay Smalley, Hannix Brerar Von Allen, Ray Cook, and Brooklyn Clark.
If you guys are here, you can come up to the podium. All right, before we begin, I would like to review our guidelines for public comment. First, the board thanks you for taking the time to attend this meeting and providing your comments. Public input informs, improves our work, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts and reflections. Our board office may follow up on board-related issues raised during public testimony. We also request that complaints about individual employees be directed to the superintendent's office as a personnel matter. If you have additional material or items you would like to provide the Board of Superintendents, we ask that you email them to public comments, all one word, @pps.net, public comments@pps.net. Please make sure when you begin your comments, you clearly state your name and spell your last name. You will have 3 minutes to speak. You will hear a sound after 3 minutes, which means you'll have additional 30 seconds to wrap up your comments. All right, whoever wants to start.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brooklyn Clark, spelled C-L-A-R-K.
And my name is Ray Cook, spelled C-O-O-K.
我的中文名字是白灵。
我的中文名字是小蕊。
We are 8th graders in the Albina Mandarin Immersion Program at Harriet Tubman Middle School, and today we will be talking about our upcoming trip to Taiwan. Dr. Calvert has denied our trip because it is scheduled for 10 days rather than 5 and is not scheduled over spring break. We have asked her to reconsider her decision, but we wanted Superintendent Guerrero and the board to understand why this trip fits the expectation in the policy and should continue like it did last year.
The reason why we will be going for 2 weeks is because to us, this is a one-time experience to go together as a class and be exchange students. This isn't just some vacation we're going on. We will still be doing a lot of work. As stated, prices for travel and hotels will be far more expensive during spring break than they would be during April or even May. Last year's 8th graders got to go during April and everything went smoothly. As students, we work very hard during the school year, especially with planning this trip. So we feel spring break would be well-deserved not just for us, but for our teachers.
We plan to keep up with work while we're in Taiwan by doing a good amount of assignments and projects before and after our trip. We will also be advocating for some of the smaller assignments to be postponed and extended. And most of us has been fluent in Chinese for about 10 years, and going to Taiwan will help us become even better in the language.
There is not much time to buy plane tickets and finish our fundraising, so we ask you, Superintendent, to make sure Dr. Calvert and Dr. Proctor talk to our teachers right away about what we can do to make the trip happen on schedule. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Konbanwa. My name is Honix Varvan Allen, spelled Verarvanallen, and I'm a freshman at Grant High School. I would like to give a big thanks to you for approving the Japan Research Residency last year. I was able to walk around Tokyo, not only learning about Japan through field studies, but also how to be an adult. We were in charge. Yes, our chaperones were with us the entire time, but most of them couldn't speak Japanese. It was on us to navigate, communicate, and ask for help. Japanese schools also had a huge learning benefit. I learned about the schedule, the class material, and more. I could talk to the students during class to understand the subject. I was given homework to see what it looked like, and I even got to participate in after-school cleaning and clubs that occur every day. We learned how to be time efficient and to get to school on time, and the different school dynamics that occur in Japan. The part that challenged my abilities the most was going out and talking to Japanese people about our respective research topics. This challenged not only my Japanese speaking abilities, but also my ability to approach new people on the streets for various reasons. Then the amount of effort that went into presenting the poster boards and omiyage banashi, or souvenir stories, after a return further added to our time management, presentation skills, and the deepening of our own understanding of the language and culture. As I understand it, there are issues again this year with the lengthened time the research residencies, and the request to do the same Japan research residency and Taiwan research residency as last year and add a Vietnam research residency has run into a roadblock with a regional superintendent. I would like to urge you to examine the reasoning the regional superintendent offers for rejection. These tremendous learning experiences before, during, and after the research residencies wouldn't be possible by missing only 5 school days. Just to travel to and from Taiwan, Vietnam, and Japan involves 2 days minimum. To conduct the research, become students for a week at schools, connect deeply with homestays, and engage in field studies effectively and thoroughly requires significantly more time than the travel limited to 5 school days. If this were a trip that I took every year, I could understand that it would not be exceptional. However, this is a powerful academic capstone experience for students in these DLI programs whose language and culture centers are distant, and is only once in their 13 years in these programs. It is indeed, for each of these learners, exceptional. I ask that you read the parent letters from all the DLI programs involved and understand that the research residencies are not about missing school. On the contrary, it is about making school real and truly relevant. Please grant these programs exceptional status moving forward so that these 8th graders and all future 8th graders can fully enjoy this monumental learning experience. This is all to say, this kind of trip is necessary for every student, not just the Japanese immersion students. Everyone should have the opportunity to go somewhere new and learn about different cultures through research projects and field studies. This was so incredibly important to my understanding of the Japanese culture, and I feel sad at the thought that this trip is not a possibility because of the 5-day limit. This research residency meant a lot to me, and it will mean a lot to everyone who has the opportunity to go. Thank you for your time. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Good evening. My name is Kiyomi McCollister, spelled out MCCOLLISTER. I am an 8th grader at Mount Tabor Middle School. I'm here today to talk about why going on the Japan research residency for a full 10 days is so important. This is my 10th year in the Japanese dual language immersion program, as I started in pre-K. This program is important to me because my mom's side of the family is Japanese, and so learning the language is very meaningful. Being able to speak Japanese has allowed me to communicate with a lot of my relatives. It has also allowed me to make connections with people I wouldn't otherwise. This program has also given me a place where I belong as a biracial student. As an 8th grade student at Mount Tabor Middle School in the JDLI program, my classmates and I have been preparing for the Japan research residency. This is where we travel to Japan, visit a few schools, stay with the Japanese family in their home, and experience what it would be like to live in Japan. We also conduct research by surveying local people about a topic that we have prepared. By going there for a full 10 days, it would make this so much more meaningful. It would give us an opportunity to see how the locals really live instead of just seeing how the tourist point of view. This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for many students, and it would be a shame if it was rushed. We would learn so many things we wouldn't be able to learn in the classroom. It would be similar to going to outdoor school to learn about nature versus learning about it in a classroom. By going there for 10 days, it would increase the time for me to naturally expand my Japanese vocabulary and feel more comfortable speaking Japanese after I return to Portland. Just like learning a new sport in 10 days instead of 5 days, it would greatly increase my skill sets. This opportunity is available to every JDLI 8th grader, whether they can afford it or not. The difference in cost between going for a full 10 days versus going for half the time isn't that much, because most of the cost is in plane fare. It makes sense to go for a full 10 days after spending so much for a plane ticket. This is why going on the Japan research residency for a full 10 days is so important for my classmates and the upcoming JDLI 8th graders. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you guys for your testimony, but I have a question. You mentioned you went last year, right?
That is correct, yeah.
Yes. How did you feel that helped you by going last year and as far as this year goes in your studies?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that my Japanese speaking capabilities skyrocketed after that trip. And also, as I am taking the AP exam this year, I know that going on that trip is so incredibly important to furthering my Japanese learning. If I had not gone on that trip, there would be so many things that I'd be missing out on for the AP exam. So not only did it help my language speaking capabilities, my understanding of how different places work, especially Japan and the different cultures, but it also helped me a tremendous amount in preparation for the AP exam, and I imagine that it will help me achieve an even greater level of Japanese.
Thank you. Thank you guys for testifying. Thank you. All right, next, we will have the opportunity to spotlight some of our amazing middle school. Superintendent Guerrero, you're up.
Yeah, I'm going to invite our special guest and our chief of schools. I'm going to ask Dr. John Franco to introduce our school leaders who are going to be putting a spotlight and describing some of the wonderful work happening in their middle school communities.
Okay, thank you for that, Superintendent Guerrero. Directors, it is indeed my distinct pleasure.
Just a moment. Can we wait? They're still trying to figure out how to sit down,
yeah.
and I want to make sure that all the kids are seated before we start going into things.
Okay, so directors, it is indeed my pleasure to introduce the proud principals of Beaumont Middle School and Robert Gray. So first, just want to introduce Dr. Harriet V. Mignon. That's how you pronounce it. She told me it was, and she just whispered good job to me. And it took me about a year to get that right, and she told me it's like filet mignon. I said, okay, I got it. So obviously both principals are here for a reason. They're outstanding leaders and have done a great job from a results perspective and establishing and helping create cultures of collective efficacy, which we talk often about. So one thing just real quick, and I'll introduce them both and then they could take it from there. One of the things, if you go to Beaumont, what you'll find, or I would say what you won't find in the hallways are the kids, because they're in the classrooms. And when you're talking about at a middle school, that's really something to see. What I also have appreciated about Harriet in particular is that when she is out and about and when we're walking around, kids are always coming up to her, giving her high fives, giving her hugs. She knows every single thing that's happening, feels like, within those student lives. And so very proud of her, very proud of the work of the staff in that community over there at Beaumont. I'm also very proud of the proud principal at Robert Gray, and that's Lisa Newland. Lisa would refer to herself as a triple threat, meaning she was a student in PPS. She is obviously an employee, but she's a parent as well in PPS. And what I just said about Harriet, you'll find the same exact qualities in regards to Lisa. I've gotten to know Lisa and also on a personal level because she's last year was a president in PAPSA. This year she's a vice president, and I can tell you the conversations we've had have been outstanding when you're talking about trying to improve the system overarchingly, and you could see that level of leadership echoed as the principal, Robert Gray. So without further ado, I think we'll start with Harriet talking about Beaumont.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the invitation. When you're in a school, you don't always have the opportunity to share your successes in this large format, so I'm super excited to be here. Yes, I am the proud principal of Beaumont Middle School. It is my pleasure to share with you some of the strategies and structures that we have put into place to support Beaumont student success. This is my 9th year as a principal at Beaumont. Over time, we have created an environment where every adult is invested in ensuring that Beaumont students are successful. Firstly, as a principal, I believe the most important thing that I do is hiring staff members that are highly qualified in their content area. I also look for people that are reflective of their practice and believe in culturally affirming instructional practices that allow for relationship building and community building with students and each other. Initially, our schedule was focused on a self-contained model for 6th grade. After considering our effectiveness or lack thereof, we made some programming shifts. So our teachers focus currently on their area of expertise. The majority of our teachers are teaching in their content area. Some are teaching more than one grade level, but they are focused in their content area. Also, we are now practicing a push-in model for English language learners and learning sooner students. This will allow for the students that are identified to have access to elective classes. We have a total of 3 electives: art, choir, and band. Sometimes in middle school, it is the electives that keep students connected to school. We would love to have at least 1 or 2 additional FTE, 1 for technology, which we no longer have this year because of budget cuts, and also 1 academic intervention specialist to support students that are struggling academically. It is a stretch currently to find elective opportunities outside of the 3 mentioned earlier. We are struggling to create schedules to teach some of the other required electives, for example, AVID and STEM. So I'll speak to our gains from last year. Last year, with our expert math teachers, we have made some significant gains in math, with over a 10% increase for our school overall. We have also made about a 3% increase in English language arts. An academic interventionist specialist would help raise achievement for students struggling. Being that this is a pre-budget meeting, if the above two requests can be considered, we would greatly appreciate it. Ideally, every middle school would have 2 intervention specialists, one for math and one for reading. As students are reading to learn in middle school, if they can't read, they're going to struggle in every single content class. Thank you. So this year at Beaumont, we are focusing on a reading initiative in collaboration with our librarian, our instructional specialists, and all classroom teachers. I greatly appreciate our language arts teachers that agreed to participate in a PD that focuses on the science of reading this year. They were kind of voluntold. I signed them up, and they agreed to participate. So in summary, I know that the Beaumont staff are dedicated to the teaching profession, and they are willing to do what it takes to help our students thrive. In addition to teaching, we have created opportunities for students and staff to have fun. I would like to recognize the Beaumont PTA, who have also stepped up to help fill some of the gaps to support our students, staff, and families. We have an activities committee that identifies creative ways for students to connect with our campus community and the community at large. This may look like grade level assemblies, whole class gatherings and activities, and most recently a school competition that we call squad games. So students, staff, and support staff are divided into teams, and they go at it for competition, trying to gain points for a variety of activities that we create, academic as well as social, emotional, and fun activities. So with the squad games, staff created the concept. We reinforce attendance expectations, academic expectations, and we are using school provided planners where the students are able to notate their learning objectives for various classes. So that is something that took us a little while to get going full force, but every student should be able to open their planner and tell you what the learning objectives are for their class, because they're posted in the classroom. The students are required to write them down, and they're able to reflect on them as needed. As leaders, my vice principal, Mr. Kramer, and I are helping to build leadership capacity within the teaching ranks at Beaumont. School leaders cannot do everything on their own. We value the professionalism of our staff, and we are helping to create an environment and supportive systems that will continue at Beaumont once we are no longer there. Thank you to the district for funding teacher leadership avenues this year. We greatly appreciate that. It's been a big support. Teachers that work many hours outside of their school day on their own are encouraged by being able to use their skills to support the school. The instructional leadership team and the professional learning communities are using this support to evaluate what is working well and to identify opportunities that will positively impact our students in middle school. Middle school can be tough, but we are loving it at Beaumont. I am grateful for each staff member. Shout out to everyone that is a part of the Beaumont community that makes it a joy to come to work every day. Let me know if you want to participate, board members, in our squad games event coming up at the end of the week. Let me know. Just send me an email and I can make sure you get connected. And if you want to wear comfortable clothes, you can participate. So thank you again for this opportunity, and we will continue the work to help support our students. I don't know if you have any questions about anything that
Do you play red light, green light?
Pardon?
Do you play red light, green light in your squad games?
There are some games, so if you want to bring your running shoes, yeah.
What time is this on Friday?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's in the afternoon. We have an afternoon assembly where students and staff and parents and you all can compete. Okay. I'll send the information to the board secretary so that you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Any other questions? Did I give you enough information? Yep. Okay. And my colleague will continue.
I'm so glad I get to work with you, Harriet. And we'll have to talk about the games because I got to know more about that. Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Guerrero, esteemed members of the school board, Portland community, staff, and students. My name is Lisa Newland. I am the proud principal of Robert Gray Middle School. I come to you tonight as the representative of a dynamic, thriving middle school led by an amazing staff dedicated to the deep engagement and flourishing success of the students we serve together. It's an honor to share this moment with 3 Robert Gray students, Amelia, Roxy, and Taviana. I'm going to keep my opener brief so they can have the balance of time. Robert Gray Middle School believes every student is an essential stakeholder and collaborator in their academic and social emotional growth, and that together we can better build a world in which we can all succeed. Together we are purposeful in ensuring that student identities and experiences are centered in our work every day. To that end, in the fall of 2020, we were able to hire our first school climate specialist funded through the creative use of Building FTE. In the fall of 2023, we were able to hire not only a school climate specialist, but also a restorative justice coordinator and a campus safety agent. Thank you, all of you, for hearing the call of middle schools that we made last spring, asking that all PPS middle schools have these positions funded directly through PPS staffing allocations. As you review budget necessities for the 2024-2025 school year, I ask you to keep this commitment in mind. All PPS middle schools need the full complement of these extra supports through the meaningful, tiered climate work paid for through centrally allocated funding sources. You'll see in our school's climate goal and our school improvement plan is all about student engagement and voice. Between fall of 2019 and fall of 2023, we made 15% gains on average in our 3 focal success statements based on our school climate survey. Students have a voice at our school. Student council and leadership make the school a better place. Adults listen to student ideas about how to make the school a better place. We survey students 3 times a year and ask for their opinion about this, and so we collect that data as measurement points for our success. We aim to keep that trend going, which is why I will end my turn at the mic now so that you can hear from our student leaders. At Robert Gray, we intentionally build capacity for leadership in our students, from our affinity spaces to clubs like No Place for Hate, our leadership elective, and student council. We continue to build a program that centers student experience and empowerment. Allow me to introduce Roxy Wood, Taviana Dean, and Amelia Espinoza.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Roxy Wood, and I'm an 8th grader at Robert Gray. Since I started at Robert Gray 2 years ago, leadership has changed my middle school experience greatly. At the start of taking leadership, I was a very think of others first, only do what everyone else wanted, and just an overall passive person. Over these 2 years, I've come out of my shell and became more of an outgoing person who gets things done while being caring, instead of just letting other people do what they want. That alone just shows how much I've changed as a person through leadership, but also through Robert Gray. Leadership in Robert Gray alone has provided me with so many opportunities, like speaking at the No Place for Hate Youth Summit panel last year and volunteering at Reiki Elementary School through the leadership class, and just being able to be a part of something bigger than going to school every day. Robert Gray overall has helped me learn about myself and my connection to my school community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Viana. I believe in doing the best you can is worth it. RGMS is a good school, but certain people can make it better, such as people involved with No Place for Hate, leadership, and affinity groups. Me as an individual, I can do my fair share to make Robert Gray be the best school it can be. I am a joyful and talented person. I'm creative and kind. I'm currently running for representative in my in my school. And by running, I will try to get people's point across and needs met. I attended the Ethnic Studies Conference at PCC this last Friday. It inspired me a lot. There were people that talked about how they feel that Oregon is not the best for them because of how they are mistreated and how certain schools can be better. There was one woman who really caught my eye because I noticed her hair was like mine, and she talked about how she got bullied because of her hair and how people would pick and pry because of her hair were different than theirs. I loved how she understood the language I was speaking and how she was passionate about what she was saying. When I spread my passion, it can affect a lot of people. People start to smile and have joy on their face when I talk to them. They are interested in what I say because I am so powerful in my words. And with a little bit more power, people can have joy in what they say. That woman at the conference was so powerful. I want to be that person for others at Robert Gray Middle School.
Hello, I am Amelia Espinosa. Student leadership is a very important part of RGMS. It gives students a chance to have a say in how their school works. For me, it's given me the opportunity to try out leadership roles that previously I didn't have the chance to try out. I've always been okay with following the leader, and while in some cases that's good, there are also opportunities where taking action and becoming a leader is beneficial to the bigger picture. RGMS leadership has helped me figure out that I want to take action and make a difference in our community. We as middle schoolers are still learning how to make our way through the world, and when learning opportunities are presented now, we can be better leaders in the long run. The RGMS values of community, equity, and growth are values I consider very important. I've already said I want to make a difference, but where would we make that difference if not in our own community? Furthermore, how would we keep our community kind and welcoming if not for equity? Everyone deserves equal rights and opportunities, and justice for when their rights are violated. As we learn about each other and strengthen our community, we grow. Without emotional and intellectual growth, what's the point of our physical growth? We'd all just be kids picking on each other anyways. My middle school experience has positively shaped my future. We're acknowledging that we are the next generation and we're going to take the world by storm. We will invent new inventions, write new literature for the ages, and set new records for our kids to break. Everyone can accomplish something. For me, I have hopes and dreams. Middle school helped me turn those dreams into goals. Goals I can achieve, goals I can share, and goals I can revise and rewrite if I feel I need to. Best of all, I can help others achieve their goals and find their goals and achieve them. Our futures are bright because of our teachers, our friends, and our learning.
Thank you guys so much for that. Any comments? Okay. Thank you again.
Just thank you. That was amazing. Thank you.
Yes. All right, next we have a resolution to consider the reassessment of the Jefferson High School modernization design. Guadalupe, you're up again.
Yeah, I'm going to invite down our Chief Operating Officer, Dan Young, to queue up this topic and resolution.
Good evening, directors and superintendent. 1 year ago today, or no, 1 year ago, not today, December, the board approved a comprehensive plan for the modernization of Jefferson High School. The plan was a product of considerable community feedback, which included retention and modernization of the original 1909 school building. This past June, after significant due diligence, a refined project costing structure resulted in significant project overages above the board-approved budget. One of the primary cost drivers was the unexpected work necessary to modernize the 4-story historic unreinforced masonry building while also keeping students on site during construction. In mid-July, the Jefferson project team hosted a workshop to review project assumptions, goals, and strategies, and to look for opportunities to get the project back on budget. The outcome was a design that would retain and modernize the 1909 building, but would also require Jefferson High School students to temporarily relocate to the Marshall High School campus during construction. Understandably, this decision was unexpected and new information for the community, and it quickly became clear that the distance to the Marshall campus was too far for students attending Jefferson. Community feedback is that the Jefferson High School community would strongly prefer to keep the students on site during construction, construct a new high school, and demolish the 1909 building instead of temporarily relocating. Following last week's meeting of the board's Facilities and Operations Committee, we have a resolution before you to reassess the current site and building design and related land use efforts so that Jefferson High School students and staff will stay on site during construction rather than relocate. Staff are also proposing to return to you in under 120 days with an updated plan to modernize the high school. And with that, I will answer any questions you may have.
All right, so do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
All right, any comments?
I just want to lift up my colleagues on the board that were at the Facilities and Operations meeting for your advocacy for Jefferson High School, a school that's close to my heart and also in Zone 2. I'm really pleased that we were able to listen to the community advocates that came out, and especially the gentleman that was in the room as a community member and a PPS employee that demanded that we actually make good on our promises to this community to keep the community intact. And so I'm really pleased to support this. And I also want to just put in a plug for that aquaponics farm that I'm a huge fan of. Green jobs are here, and we need to train our community members, especially these impacted communities, in green jobs that are future jobs that don't involve fossil fuels, et cetera, et cetera.
Any other discussion, questions?
Can I go ahead?
Yep.
Just reconfirming, I'm looking at the resolution right now. It's, the updated plan will include a targeted student enrollment of 1,700, but my understanding is that that was always the plan for the 2020, when we passed the 2020 bond, that it would have a 1,700. So there's no change from what the 2020 bond, correct?
That is correct. It's retaining
Okay.
the current course.
Because there was a discussion at the committee about possibly that being lower, and like I say, when we, and many of us went to the voters and talked to them about the rebuild of Jefferson and the Center for Black Student Excellence. There's a lot of excitement in the community, and part of it was that Jefferson was finally going to get the school that they deserved. So I'm glad to see that in here, but I just want to note that that was always the plan when we passed it with voters. In addition, it talks about the building being built to the current education specifications, which is what we built the other high schools to, correct?
That is correct.
It doesn't note this, but I just want to make sure, it doesn't note it in the resolved portion, but when the original design was put forward, actually there was some deviation from the education specs to build a larger auditorium than was in the education specifications because of the Jefferson arts program, and that was something the community wanted. I'm assuming that's still in the potential design?
Correct. The intent is to keep, there's always, with the ed specs, every project, there's going to be some puts and takes, and we look to identify that in the comprehensive planning because of site constraints, et cetera. So we consider the Jefferson project Ed Specs Plus, where the goal is to meet the Ed Specs. And there's certain programs, such as the auditorium, where the intent is it is larger, as in the approved comprehensive plan, and has the intent to retain that going forward as well.
Great. So that was something else I think that was very exciting for the community when have an opportunity to vote. And I think it's the highest vote we ever got on a bond, at least in the last 20 years. Then another question I had is the, well, it doesn't state it here. I just want to, for the record, acknowledge that we passed an amendment when we adopted the original design, that there would be a neighborhood boundary process built for Jefferson. That's still the intent. That hasn't gone anywhere.
That hasn't gone anywhere. We're not
Okay,
proposing to make
great.
any changes
I just
to
wanted,
that.
because there was a conversation, I just want to acknowledge a conversation that in committee that Director DePass mentioned that currently the Jefferson High School has significantly fewer students than 1,700. But part of that is that Jefferson is the only what once was a neighborhood school. So Benson was never a neighborhood school and always never had a neighborhood boundary, but Jefferson used to have a neighborhood boundary, and it's the only school in high school that we have that literally all the students can choose between their, quote, neighborhood high school Jefferson or another school. And the intent is for Jefferson to have its neighborhood boundary and be a neighborhood designated school. And I think what we saw with McDaniel, or at the time Madison, that had significantly fewer students, that when we built a modern school that was customized for the interests and the students in that neighborhood, that the students will come. And it's a good thing we built McDaniel for 1,700 and not for a lesser amount. So this is only changing the design. It's none of the not changing any of the previously promises that we had made. And it's changing the design so that students don't actually have to leave during the construction. That's the goal, right?
That is correct. So it's a design change to keep students on site during construction.
Okay.
And on that specific, I don't mean to interrupt, but can I follow up on that specific
Go
point?
ahead. I have one last point, but go ahead.
Yeah, I just want, before we move on to something else, because that's really, and I might have missed something. The last time I remember talking about this, and it was with a previous board, I thought that decision about exactly what we were going to put in Jefferson was still up in the air. So I'm actually really glad to hear that it's not. And when I read your memo, that we are planning for a full comprehensive high school. I guess I just want to be really clear, and maybe I'm the only one who missed this, but I mean, that means we're redrawing the boundaries when Jefferson reopens and taking students away from, Grant and Franklin, right? I mean, and so that is going to be, I think, the right thing to do for our community, but it is going to be a pretty significant process that I'm guessing will, get some public feedback.
There is actually already a boundary. It's just they can choose whether they want to, depending on where they are within the boundary, whether they want to go to Jeff or to Roosevelt. Or
right,
to
and I'm suggesting
or Benson.
Yeah.
So I'm in the Jefferson catchment area, and we can choose Benson, Grant, and I think in other areas, other parts, reaches of that boundary, you can also choose Roosevelt.
And I guess what I'm getting at is taking away that choice is going to be a big change for the district. And I guess what I want to make really sure is that the board, if we're committing to building a high school for 1,700, we are going to fill that, which means that even if we get a lot of pushback and we get a lot of folks who say they don't really want that we're moving forward. Because if we build a 1,700 high school and then 3 years from now say, ooh, because of that public input or engagement, we don't want to take away that choice, we're still going to have a high school of 600 to 800. So it's a pretty monumental decision that I guess I just want to make sure that both staff and the board are fully committed to.
Yeah, I think that would be treating Jefferson just like we treat all other high schools.
I'm with you.
Yes, and also when we had that
Thank you for driving that
demographic,
point home.
we had that demographer come from Portland State, and there were 2 areas of town that were predicted to have higher population, and Jefferson was one of them. I know because I worked at housing at the time that there were 2,000 units being planned in the interstate corridor, which is where this is located. And I think that since we've got people, buying houses in the tax increment financing area, that will now have the option of going to an amazing school.
Thanks for letting me expand on that point.
In addition to getting the amazing tax credits or tax benefits.
I would note that just like high school students in every other cluster, Benson will still be, as it has been for 100 years. Benson will still be an option because it is designed to serve the entire city, but that was, Jefferson, like most of our other comprehensive high schools, was designed to be a neighborhood school, and it only became not a neighborhood school so that it didn't have to close because of the sort of onerous penalties and No Child Left Behind, which would have essentially was a bad error. But
We're ready now.
Yeah.
We're ready now.
Offer 2 quick comments. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Dr. Green. Go ahead.
You're fine.
So part of what happened with high school redesign over a decade ago was part of an original enrollment balancing decision. So there was a lot of energy that came through that process. One of the things that happened, and so I just want to make sure we clarify this one point, which is Jefferson has an historic catchment. That catchment is still on the map. It's called the dual assignment zone, and it's really the only place in the state, I believe, that there's a dual assignment where all students that are in the historical Jefferson catchment have a choice to go to Jefferson or what is a comprehensive neighborhood school. So it actually expanded the catchment for Grant, McDaniel, and Roosevelt. So I just want to make sure that's part of what happened, was that it actually was an expansion of the catchment for those 3 comprehensive high schools. And then as we come back to this, that by design and the process of doing the high school redesign, it became a focus option school with some targets, right, enrollment targets. So the size of the school is actually within the enrollment targets that were set at the time. And so as we're thinking about what does that look like, not only for the current state, but then also looking forward, it is by design that the student population is where it's at. And that is, and that it actually, the schools that are around it have benefited from the expanding of their catchment. So there is a process that what is surfacing is around enrollment balancing, which that is something for the board to decide to engage in. But that is part and parcel of what has brought us to the size of the school as it is.
Yeah, and I don't think we've been super direct with the community that a few years from now we're taking away that dual enrollment zone and going back to that historical catchment. And I would just encourage us over the next 3 years to be very clear with the community so no one can claim, wait, I didn't know that was going to happen. We're building a beautiful brand new high school, which is going to be amazing, and it's going to be fully comprehensive, and people in that traditional catchment are going to go to that high school. And I just think we should be really clear with our community about that. And it's a direction I support. I just want to make sure that we're all on board with it now and in the future.
It'll probably reduce the overages at some of those schools too. So particularly Grant, which is, I think, over-enrolled by 400 students.
So, yeah. And I just had one last question about the pivot forward to a different design versus a pause. So we're still full speed ahead with rebuilding a new modernized Jefferson, but with a new design that will allow students to stay on site. And the question is, do you anticipate that would at all delay any of the other projects, or is the district capable to continue to move forward with all the various projects it's got sort of on deck from the 2020 bond?
That's a good question. I don't anticipate right now a delay of other projects. Our hope is that we're going to bring back here by the middle of April a new plan, new high-level scope, schedule, and budget plan, and hit some of those schedule targets with this new design that we had originally. We're hoping to compress some of our timelines, our construction timeline in particular. So I guess directly answer your question, I don't anticipate any other impacts. If there is something that comes to light, we'll bring that forward.
Yeah, I noticed one thing. It does say wide range of enrollments could be considered between 600 and 1,700 students. And then one focused conversation worth pursuing with stakeholders is how different enrollment sizes could support design options that did integrate plans for Jefferson, the Center for Black Student Excellence, and Harriet Tubman Middle School. So one of these documents says that, and the other one says it wouldn't consider those. So
Yeah.
which one is it?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a good clarification. So
Yeah.
in the materials is a copy of the staff report that was for the Facilities and Operations Committee. And part of the conversation that was deliberate to have at the committee meeting last week was, during the course of the last 4 years, some of these other topics have come up about combining Jefferson with other programs, looking at the enrollment, those sort of things. And so we wanted to be very clear that we had that discussion and got feedback from leadership of, are those things that you want staff to consider? And as the resolution, the resolution reflects that discussion of, no, the direction is to proceed forward, fully comprehensive, 1,700 students, not combined with
Okay,
other programs.
not
And so, yeah,
do this
as I
one.
understand, if you just look at the materials,
there's two
it's intended to show a progression of discussion, but it's not real clear without an
Okay,
explanation.
thank you.
Thank you, Director Sullivan, for bringing that up, because I did have that question. So again, you just said it, I just want to but it will not consider that co-location. So that's another pretty clear policy direction the board is giving tonight, that those things will not be co-located.
Correct.
I'm sorry if I missed this. I had to step away for a second in your opening or in the early questions. Logistically, how can we keep students in place if we're completely rebuilding the school?
Similar to the Lincoln model is kind of what
so
people
there's enough
commonly
space
think.
for that?
Correct. So there's
Okay.
really
No, that's fine. I was under
two
the impression
potential,
from
yeah.
earlier conversations that while Lincoln and IW Wells and other schools had that space, that Jefferson does not have the space to do that, but.
Yeah, so
They
it'd
may.
be looking at building new construction while keeping the students on site and then moving
And there's
them over
enough
to the-
space on that
Correct.
footprint
And
to
there's
do
two different options, primary options we're looking at. We're hoping to bring back in April just one of those and say this is the clear best option moving
Okay, great.
forward.
I thought that was, from earlier conversations, not an option. I'm glad to hear that it is. So, thanks.
Any other comments, questions, thoughts? All right, the board will now vote on Resolution 6806, resolution authorizing reassessment of the modernization design of Jefferson High School. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
No opposition. Student Director Silverstein, please indicate your vote.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, well, there's no abstentions. Resolution 6806 is approved by a vote of 7-0 with Student Director Silverstein unofficially voting yes. All right. Okay, so next we have the second reading of policy revisions. We are voting on two revised policies, 5.10.025-P, the Diversity and Employment Policy, formerly known as Affirmative Action Policy, and 2.20.010-P, Naming School District Policy. Both of these policy revisions were introduced in the first reading on October 10th. We can start with 5.10.025-P, the Diversity and Employment Policy. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 6789?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Director DePass, motions. Director Brim-Edwards, seconds. Is there any board discussions? Ms. Ms. Bradshaw, is there any public comment?
Yes. Nazgul Chester.
Can you say it again in case somebody didn't?
Nazgul Chester.
directors. We are here to represent our Kelly Elementary School, and we would like to say that our school is considered most diverse students, and we don't have an equal ratio of our teachers and other staff. I've noticed, I had messaged her saying, I think I don't want to speak because it's a touchy subject. So I haven't come prepared because I have another speech, but I will just say what I'm thinking. I was looking at the website and I noticed our Board of Education giving big monies for retention of diverse employees. And I looked up the chart that each school of PPS or Oregon schools receive. And the research I looked, it looked like actually the schools that has the most diverse students that need those kind of teachers did not get any of that money. I was looking whether some of the PPS schools, and I specifically looked at Kelly School, and Kelly did not get any money, and we lost our wonderful teachers, and we had in the past multiple times we've lost, and that's the main concern of our community because it is hard to have bilingual Russian language teachers. It's an extra process. It also, I guess, it takes a lot of money to prepare them, yet we lose them so easily. And when we say we need our teachers, we are told, well, we can't educate you because there are no teachers. And maybe I am wrong, but I think maybe only person, our superintendent, is somebody may understand as a bilingual person that we deeply regret losing our wonderful bilingual Russian teachers. And lastly, I'd like to end to say we only have 3-4 teachers. We don't have anybody in the office. We don't have secretary. We don't have anybody in the kitchen that represents people like us. It's not just our program, our whole school, our neighborhood school. We would like to see us together. They are quite diverse as well. And we're not just diverse. We are, I'm considered, we are fresh in the country, and I'm considered already experienced person in that school. So our school needs help. Our school needs help in reality, retain our teachers, train them, but not just train, retain them. That's it. Sorry.
Thank you, thank you. Any additional public comment? All right.
So,
Go ahead.
I just wanted-
Board discussion?
note. Thank you, Chair. This came through the committee. We didn't have any public comment in committee, but I do want to note that for the, as part of this revised policy, there is a reporting and oversight section that will have an annual report to the board that provides employee demographic data on hiring and retention and progress to the goals articulated in this policy. And to me, that's going to be, for all of us, that should be an important tool for us to look at how we're doing vis-a-vis what our goals and what we all think our schools and neighborhoods deserve. So.
All right, any other board discussion? All right, well, the board will now vote on 6789, resolution to adopt revised diversity and employment policy 5.10.025-P. By voting yes on the resolution, we are approving the revisions to the policy. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All right, no opposition. Student Director Silverstein, please indicate your vote.
Yes.
All right, resolution 6789 is approved by a vote of 7-0, with Student Director Silverstein unofficially voting yes. All right, next we'll vote on 2.20.010-P, naming district school property policy. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 6790?
So moved.
All right, Andrew Scott motion, Director Scott motion Director Brim Edwards, second. Resolution to adopt revising name school district property. Is there any board discussion? Ms. Bradshaw, is there any public comment?
No.
All right, the board will now vote on 6790, resolution to adopt revised naming school district property 2.20.010-P. By voting yes on this resolution, we are approving the revisions to the policy. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All right, no opposition, no abstentions. Director Student Silverstein, unofficially voting?
Yes.
All right. Okay, next we have the Oregon School Board Association, which Portland Public Schools is a member of. It's organized as one general state association with up to 24 regionally elected representatives across 14 regions in order. In odd number years, members' board votes to elect regional representatives for even numbered positions on the OSBA Board of Directors and also elect regional representatives on the Legislative Policy Committee. Tonight, we're voting on all three positions for the Legislative Committee and one position for the Board of Directors. And I'm going to ask if we can combine these all together. All right, so do I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 6802, 6803, 6804, and 6805?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Director Scott, motion. Director DePass, second. Is there any board discussion? All right, so the resolution is to support Chris Howard for the Oregon School Board Association Board of Director, position number 18. Jessica, and I hope I'm saying these names right, Arzate for Legislative Policy Committee, number 18. Binda Rivas, Legislative Policy Committee, number 17, and David Lynn for Legislative Policy Committee, number 19. Ms. Bradshaw, is there any public comment?
No.
All right. The board will now vote on 6802, 6803, 6804, 6805. Resolution to support Chris Howard.
We got it, Chair.
Okay. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All right. All opposed? Student Director Silverstein, please indicate your vote.
Yes.
All right. Hearing no abstentions, Resolution 6802, 6803, 6804, 6805 is approved by a vote of 7-0, with Student Director Silverstein unofficially voting yes. All right. Next, we have general public comment. Ms. Bradshaw, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We do.
All right, would you call them all up? And when your name is called, you can come up to the dais.
Danelda Wise, Nazgul Chester, Jaxie Dion, and Katia Fleshman.
All right. And since I've already given guidelines for public comments earlier this evening, I will not repeat them. But I will remind PPS staff that may not provide testimony about students that could violate confidentiality protections under FERPA. This includes testimony using information that could identify students, especially in their school communities, by the use of direct or indirect linkage, such as school, grade, special education, or other status. Please make sure when you begin your comments that you clearly state your name and spell your last name. Again, you have 3 minutes to talk. After you hear the beep, you have an additional 30 minutes to wrap up your comments. 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
But go long if you want, apparently.
All right, 30 seconds. All right.
Good evening. My name is Denelda Weiss, and I had the opportunity in working in the Portland schools through Open School in the 2021-2022 school year. From the beginning of the school year, I was sexually harassed. Sexual jokes were made about me, towards me, and the vice principal. Co-workers also talked about my body parts. I had to report these issues to my supervisor, which was also contributing to the harassment. After reporting these issues, the retaliation began. I just wanted to let you know that sexual harassment inequities run deep through the veins of this district. Administrators, educators, contractors, and volunteers need to be reminded that many things fall underneath the umbrella of sexual harassment. There are many courses and trainings around gender and sexual identity, and there should be. But other things fall under sexual harassment that need to be addressed too. My body parts were talked about by coworkers. Then students started to repeat their references. Then a sexual joke was told about me in an arena where parents, students, and teachers were. I was oppressed at this point. I was ostracized by being kept out of groups, meetings, and activities. I believe retaliation was also the leading reason why it took over 60 school days for my son to be enrolled into school when this process typically takes 10 days. I was told by PPS they couldn't give me a reason why it took so long for him to be enrolled. My resilient son has a 3.6 GPA and the last of my 3 sons to graduate in Portland, Oregon. This kind of retaliation hurts a child's educational growth. Rumors about me being aggressive without supporting evidence and trying to limit my access to activities. After reporting the sexual harassment, I was placed on paid administrative leave from March until mid-May when they told me they couldn't return to work because I couldn't be able to fit in once being gone for such a long period. I was also told I was being investigated by Portland Public Schools, and if I wanted to remain being paid, I needed to not communicate with Portland Public Schools until they communicated with me, but they never did. During this time, I had 2 children in Portland Public Schools, and I felt limited in advocating for my own children. I have been a Black Student Union coordinator at a local college. I was in the Urban League 2015 cohort, featured in the State of Black Oregon for educational inequity, spoke in front of the City Council for classism, and graduated from Sisters in Strength before being employed by Open School that is contracted by PPS at Franklin High School. Equity is a basket that holds many different isms, racism, classism, and other issues. I'm not stating these issues without knowledge and training on how to identify inequitable behaviors. The way of reporting sexual harassment needs to be changed. The way it is now brings conflict to the workplace. Black women have not been seen and heard in this district, and generationally, they have been broken down and oppressed if they complain. PPS, please look into better ways on how to support sexual harassment victims, protect families with students in the district from educational retaliation, hold HR responsible for not engaging in a timely manner, train all employees on sexual harassment with meaningful courses, and hire an independent auditor for all sexual harassment reports. Thank you for listening to my concerns.
Okay. Thank you. I am speaking to you regarding a policy that's not up tonight. Good evening, directors, superintendent. We are concerned about large class sizes at DLI schools and ask you how aligning DLI with neighborhood schools will be in our students' best interest. First, I'd like it known that our Title I schools have large class sizes. Previously, Director Scott stated that resources currently directed to Title I schools keep class sizes low. However, my second grader attends Kelly Elementary School Russian Immersion, a Title I school, and her class has 30 students in a district whose class size average is 22. Despite her teacher's expertise, students' learning is impacted by their large class size. First, there is less academic support available for students in a single large class than for students in 2 small classes. This leaves all but a few students who are below grade level and without the academic support they need. Many students not yet reading at 2nd grade are being left completely without support from specialists. Second, our Russian-speaking newcomers from Ukraine, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, and Central Asia have experienced displacement and war trauma and require more support in place. Why are families from these communities being refused enrollment as PPS continues to unassign our Russian-speaking Slavic educators of the Russian immersion program? My perspective is both as a PPS parent and teacher. In my 2 2nd grade classes of 30 and 31 students each, I have the notable firsthand experience of what a school day is like for my daughter. As in Russian immersion, teachers in the JDLI program instruct twice the amount as teachers in non-DLI schools. Out of my 61 students, only 2 are receiving reading interventions from a staff specialist. The other 29 students below benchmark wait their turn to meet in a small group with me. Each of my 61 students receives a total of 4 to 5 minutes per day with me, resulting in a drastic loss of 6.5 total hours this year, which is down from last year's 5 to 6 minutes per day. Board misconstructions are that enrollment is steadily declining. Conversely, the rate of enrollment increased. See Table 2, and it's in my notes. Last year, both Kelly and Richmond DLI received teacher cuts with increasing elementary enrollment, as it had for the past 3 school years. Richmond was projected to lose 15 students at each grade level, lost only 3. Meanwhile, both Kelly and Richmond refused admittance to students, claiming the reason to be high class sizes. At Richmond, we 3 2nd grade teachers added 7 students each to our classes this year. Our community asks, why refuse enrollment to our DLI programs while teachers are being cut? Does the board need more information before decisions on policy changes, which is not up tonight anymore, that affect our most vulnerable students? The proposal to align DLI class sizes with non-DLI schools raises questions about what equity in PPS looks like. Our community wants you to know that what you will do to help our multilingual students receive support after years of consistently misinformed cuts. How will your proposal help our children from continuing to shoulder our district's fiscal burden? And I did have printouts in case anybody was interested.
You can give them to our board. Elaine, she's at. She's somewhere. You can give it to
Okay,
Kara.
Kara,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is Jackie Dion. I am a parent of a 2nd grader in Kelly Elementary Russian's dual language immersion program. I am also here to speak to you tonight about this policy on classroom sizes. Kelly is also my neighborhood school as well as a Title I school. I'm concerned about class sizes, equity, and resources, and the support for the students in this program. My child's opportunity to experience bilingual education at our Title I neighborhood school has been invaluable. He thrived in kindergarten and even in 1st grade with a larger class size of 26 students. However, the significant difference in class size in 2nd grade is concerning and glaring. My son's 2nd grade immersion classroom is an astounding 40% larger than that of the neighborhood classes. This trend is seen across grades at Kelly Elementary, with the DLI program consistently having larger classroom sizes across all grades with the exception of kindergarten. I question the equity of this discrepancy and its impact on delivering a high-quality dual language immersion education. The Slavic community is the largest refugee-based population in the state of Oregon and faces many disparities and inequities in access to resources and education. Regrettably, these disparities seem evident at Kelly. We need clearer policies and improved management, as well as additional classroom support in these programs, especially in classes like my son's that surged to 31 students this year as vulnerable Slavic immigrants escaping conflict in Ukraine joined his classroom with little to no formal education background in any language. These students urgently need additional resources to bridge educational gaps and cope with trauma. This large class size isn't just impacting these students, it's hindering the success of the entire classroom. Our school's perceived lack of options, especially the inability to provide a dedicated instructional aid or even discussing options to break larger classrooms into 2 strands, leaves concerns about the future as these students progress. Is this disparity set to continue? Are vulnerable Slavic immigrants going to be continued to turn away from the program despite the evident community interest and need? While immediately aligning the Kelly DLI program with that of the neighborhood school would get us closer to equal resources, ongoing consideration of the goals and needs of focus and immersion programs needs to be considered as policies are set around classroom size. Comparing our DLI programs directly to our English-speaking classrooms on this metric without considering the diverse learning needs and inherent learning differences in these programs does not create equity in educational access. With creative solutions, I believe these problems can be solved. We know that smaller classes consistently improve academic performance, especially for economically disadvantaged students. We need to explore options like blended classrooms or allocating dedicated IAs to ensure both the neighborhood and DLI programs have access to quality education without compromising resources for either. In closing, I ask again for immediate action to address this particular classroom's needs and for ongoing plans to ensure that policies support both equitable resources as well as the high-quality education in DLI and focus programs. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you.
Dear board members and superintendent, my name is Nazgul Chester. I'm a parent of 2nd grader at Kelly Elementary School's Russian Immersion Program. Our program houses the largest refugee-based community. I'm here to discuss vital issue, which is the illiteracy in overcrowded class at language program at Kelly. Our kids want to be fluent in Russian first. My son's 2nd grade class has students who don't know alphabet in any language right now. All of these students want to learn to read and write in Russian and later in English. And we want to achieve high reading map scores. But this progress is hampered by the disparity baseline ability of the students. The board's goal is to eliminate gaps in reading among students of color by the 3rd grade. This goal is unattainable in my son's class in the current state. My son was significantly behind in his reading and writing this fall. I was also told that he should be receiving intervention per PPC rules, yet he cannot because many other students scored lower than him in fall data this fall. The truth is that my son will be okay. He got me. But how about those students who have recently arrived in the country and have been walking to from Kelly by foot for almost 2 hours? Or how about those 2nd grader who's the oldest sibling in her family and cares for her youngest siblings while her parents drive Uber Eats in the afternoon and nights? I can tell I know about our families. Maybe there are things I shouldn't be telling, but they won't be reaching the goal of reading. These students don't need fancy buildings, soccer fields, playgrounds, or even green grass. They just need smaller classroom size. We have vulnerable population of students in 2nd grade who are receiving instruction 7% in Russian and 30% in English, like we wish. And the challenge is instrumental without smaller classroom size. I would like to conclude by urging board members and the superintendent to implement measurable, clear processes regarding the threshold of class, registration for DLI, so we don't feel like adopted children without rights, who are reminded each time we ask our superintendent that we are not from the neighborhood. This is traumatic to hear and carries with strong, unwelcoming undertone to our community. Most importantly, we need clarity around how it is determined when adding additional classrooms and teachers for DLI classrooms. These processes should be transparent to the community so advocacy can occur when needed, and we don't end up in overcrowded classes and unable to read. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to go to the student investment account report. Superintendent Guerrero, would you please introduce this next item?
We're going to have our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Cheryl Proctor, who's going to come up and share with you a final report on our student investment account. It's going to highlight the investments that we've made and the progress so far in this third and final year of our SIA plan. So I'm going to invite her, and I think she's sharing duties with Interim Deputy Superintendent of Business and Ops, Myung Lee, who's joining us remotely this evening. So I think between our two deputies, they'll walk us through the SIA report.
Superintendent Guerrero, there's nothing we need to vote on. This is just like our report on it, or there is a future vote.
I believe that is the point, yeah, and I'll let Myung confirm that.
Okay.
Actually, thank you, Superintendent. I hope you can hear me. I believe this item is looking backwards at the SIA program for 22-23. Dr. Proctor, please correct me if I'm mixed up on this. I believe the item that you're referring to, Director Brim Edwards, is a separate item that's on the agenda a little later in the meeting, which is the budget amendment preview, and that will be previewed tonight and brought back before you on January 9th for a vote.
Okay, so there was a staff memo that was sent out to the board regarding SIA, and we have a brief. Is the presentation? Is there a brief presentation? Could we? Okay.
It's the annual report.
Yeah.
No, that's the staff
So,
If we could cue that up, we do have a year 3 annual report that was slated for the end of November that was shared with our board members.
sorry, give me just 1 second as I pull it up also. Sorry, my computer died when all right.
Quick question. On the annual report, it said year 3, 22, 23. Is that the right year?
Yeah, it's last year.
Last year.
It's a look
This is
back.
retrospective, yeah.
So this is a look backwards. So what I'm going to go through is just the brief, presentation of a few of the investments. You received the materials. So in highlight the 22-23 is the final year of the 3-year SIA plan. SIA funds represented about 2% of the total budget for the 22-23 budget year. The SIA funds continue to deepen and accelerate investments in strategic priorities, especially for our focal student groups. The overarching priorities endured from our 2020 to today. And then so some of those priorities include and investments from those priorities include site-based instructional supports, where in 22-23 we invested in instructional specialists, we reduced class size, we invested in visual and performing arts programming, special education staffing and resourcing, extended middle school electives. For our priority on social, emotional, mental, and behavioral health, we contracted services, staff, and programs, improved safety, and expanded direct services. And we invested also in a substance abuse and suicide prevention program. For our priority in partnerships and contracts, we continue to invest in our ResJ partnerships, our alternative education providers and charter schools. Curriculum implementation, we've had resources and professional development for core curriculum implementation. And in addition, we had differentiated investments that looked that invested in BIPOC student-led affinity opportunities, culturally responsive programming for Native students, college and career coordinators for multiple pathways to graduation. And then so what you'll see in the next slide are those buckets and the representative dollar amounts in the graph by category. About 70% of the funds invested in academic support, social, emotional, and mental health, and culturally specific supports. The remaining funds were invested in the other 4 categories that are listed there. And so that concludes my overview of our SIA investments for the 22-23 school year.
Any other board questions?
No, thanks for the information.
Thank you.
Directors, we've spent countless evenings talking about the SIA and each of its elements. It's a cursory look back, it's a retrospective. Most of our funding that comes in some of these areas is now rolled into the integrated plan, and that's what we'll be talking about, or you all will be talking about moving forward.
So I actually had a question about it, and this is probably from Young. It says that it's 2% of the total budget. It looks like it's, I just look at the bar, adding up the bars, about 30 million. So is that the total? Are you counting the capital budget and everything else, or just general fund? Because it seems like it would actually be 5% or something more than.
You're looking at slide
Thank you,
5,
Director.
the one with the bar graphs? Myung?
Yes, I see the graph. Director Bermudge, I think you may be right that might be looking at the total of all of the funds, the district's budget, rather than just the general fund. Let me do a quick phone a friend and just verify that.
Yeah, it just made it seem, and I don't need tonight, but it just makes it seem like such a small amount when it's actually not, $30 million, $40 million is not insignificant, especially with where we made the investments.
Great. So maybe we can follow up afterwards. Thanks.
Will do. Thank you.
Ms. Brash, are there any public comments?
No.
All right, thank you for the presentation. All right. So on January 9th, we will vote on the first amendment to the 2023-24 adopted budget. So tonight we will be an opportunity to preview it. Superintendent Guerrero.
Yes, directors, and I think you got a pretty detailed staff report from Myung Lee joining is our budget finance team here. But as you know, it's important. It's a regular practice for our districts to update their budgets to ensure proper spending levels are maintained. So presenting this budget amendment this evening, Myung's going to walk us through.
Thank you, Superintendent. And apologies, directors, good evening, and apologies for not being with you in person. If there are any issues with my audio, if somebody could shoot me a text, that would be great. So as Superintendent Guerrero mentioned, we are going to be a team that's presenting this preview of the first budget amendment for this fiscal year. And joining me, again, my name is Myung Lee. I'm the interim deputy superintendent for for business and operations, and I'll be joined by Juno Chang, a senior manager in our budget department, and Kristen Johnson, our grants manager. So thank you in advance, Juno and Kristen, for helping deliver this content. I just wanted to begin by saying this is a preliminary, just want to emphasize that word, part one preview of this budget amendment. And we have been working pretty feverishly since all fall, but especially since the district's agreement with PAT was reached. There are a lot of different implications of that agreement, as there will be with other bargaining that's taking place. And that has a lot of different inroads to the district's budget. And what we've tried to do is pull together as much of that information as we can for tonight's preview. And we have a fair amount of work that's still ongoing. And we're going to be making some additional modifications for the board to consider before and leading up to the January 9th meeting, where the actual action item will be before you. So with that, I wanted to also mention that back on August 8th, this is literally the night before I came to PPS, there was a board meeting that you'll probably recall in which the district the team shared several key revenue adjustments, including updates to the state school fund, the early literacy grant, and the integrated grant, as well as the news about the state's final budget for the biennium, which included some additional revenues that became clear after the budget was adopted back in June, when the district was adopted back in June. As I mentioned, the negotiations with PAT, as everybody knows, have been concluded, and there are still ongoing negotiations with multiple employee groups, with multiple bargaining units. And as directors know, the year-end audit for fiscal year 22-23 is also now in its final stages. We look forward to bringing a near final draft of that to the audit committee next Thursday, December 21st. That has also included some information about the district's beginning fund balance for the current year. So this amendment, or this preview of the amendment, focuses on updating financial estimates in light of all of these events. And again, we're still working to continue to refine some of the detailed analysis. So I am now going to ask Juno Chang to present the next couple of slides about highlights of the changes in our assumptions for revenues and expenses within the general fund.
Thank you, Myung. Good evening, directors. So what we see on this slide is adjustments to our general fund revenues. So we're going to see an additional 10.5 million coming in for our beginning fund balance. That'll true up the actual fund balances from the previous year. Another 12.6 million that includes both increases to our local property taxes as well as the state school fund true up from going from 9.9 to 10.2 billion. Another 3.8 million in other local resources. This includes investment income. We've seen the interest rates have remained relatively high, similar to last year. So investments are likely more positive than what we originally budgeted. And then a small tweak in federal sources for federal forest fees. We also see a reduction in our local option levy for 3.3 million and another reduction of 1.1 million in our county and intermediate sources. So a total, we're seeing an additional 22.6 million in total revenue.
Just really quickly, I don't think you're going to later, but on the local option levy, I know there's been a little bit of discussion that's due to increasing compression. Is that right? And again, just so local option levies compress first. And so, it's a little bit surprising because I know other local governments are not seeing the same level in their compression, but I think it's probably because as a local option levy, school districts are treated a little bit differently, I think, than other
Absolutely.
governmental jurisdictions.
And the law is a little bit outdated.
Yeah. Is that just on the residential side, or are we also seeing that on the commercial side? And I don't know if you don't have to answer that tonight if you don't know. I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
it's very likely in part due to kind of the emptying in downtown. And so that's reducing some of the revenue that might be coming in otherwise.
And do we, it can be pretty volatile right now, but do we sort of have projections moving forward, whether because property values are still rising, market values are still rising, do we expect to see additional compression in future years, or do we expect to see an easing of that, or do we kind of not know at this point?
That's a great question. Yeah, there are a lot of estimates of what housing is going to look like next year and real estate prices. So I think the assessed value will still continue to go up, but the real market value may be plateauing a little bit more.
Thank you.
The next slide shows our requirements, our expenditures. We do plan on increasing the instruction requirements by 13.9 million. That's going to be mainly for our PAT agreement, and that also includes all the salary adjustments as well as substitute overage and extended hour costs. Another 3.5 million in support services for the same reason, and then 5.2 million in contingency requirements, and that is the balancing of the 22.6 million in revenue. Next up is,
Sorry, can I ask a question about that?
oh yeah. Mia?
The 0.52, which requirements are you referencing?
Oh, yeah, the 5.2 million is for contingency requirements being increased.
It's to go into the 5%,
Yes,
so it's just to fill it back up to that amount?
yes.
And Director Brim Edwards, I think I can comment a bit on that when we go to the next slide.
Okay, great.
Just to clarify a little bit about how the contingency versus the ending fund balance, the relationship there, which we know can be a little bit tricky. So this slide basically summarizes our 3-year general fund projections. The first of those 3 years being the year that we're in, the 23-24 fiscal year, and then the following 2 years. So just at a very high level, if I can just orient mostly members of the public to this, I know directors are pretty familiar with this format already. So just to walk through this, briefly, in the first year, 23-24, which is the current fiscal year, we have a beginning fund balance in the general fund of about $105 million. When I mentioned that the audit was nearing its final stages, that is one of the key pieces of information resulting in the audit or being concluded in the audit for the general fund, that the fund balance as of June 30th, 2023, the ending fund balance for that year, which becomes the beginning fund balance for the year we're in, is at $105 million, which was higher than the $95 million that was projected in the adopted budget. So that's favorable. With the changes and the updates that Juno just mentioned, we have revenues that are estimated to be $751 million for the current year, and expenses that are estimated to be about $795 million for the current fiscal year. If you sort of disregard that next line for a second, the gap closing needed line, those three numbers, beginning fund balance plus resources minus expenses, would result in a projected ending fund balance of about $61 million. So that is actually a bit a bit higher than the 5% reserve, or the 5% ending fund balance that's called for by board policy, which is closer to the low $40 million range. But because we see this pretty significant imbalance between revenues and expenses in each of the years that are in this forecast, by tens of millions of dollars, we would propose that the district engage in some gap closing beginning this year to the tune of $10 million. Doing so would help the district get to a higher ending fund balance. So instead of an ending fund balance of about $61 million, trying to achieve an ending fund balance of about $71 million. So that is our work plan from the superintendent and the staff, and we will continue to refer to that in the coming weeks and months, but aiming to get to that $70+ million projected ending fund balance for the end of this fiscal year. What then will happen is, going into the next year and the year after that, that would help us begin year two with a slightly higher beginning fund balance, still expecting a significant imbalance between revenues and expenses, or resources and requirements is the other terminology, and then identifying additional gap closing targets, which could either be the form of additional revenues, but probably the bulk of which would be expenditure reductions, of about $41 million. So that represents the target for the budget year. We're in the beginning stages of getting organized for a budget development season for 24-25. And we're beginning with a target of about $41 million of gap closing. Putting all those numbers together for 23-24 and 24-25 would point to an ending fund balance for next year, as of June 30th, 2025, of $43 million. That is just about at the 5% minimum reserve that's spelled out in board policy. And then the following year, again, we would have some gap closing to do in order to maintain that 5% balance. So I just want to make one additional note, and then maybe you'll take a breath for questions, that in the gap closing, in identifying gap closing solutions, specific ways to bring revenues and expenses closer to each other, to the extent there are solutions that are identified in any one year that can also continue in the subsequent years, that would help narrow the gap going into that following year. So in other words, an example is if there are $10 million of reductions or additional revenues that are identified in the rest of this year, so the next 6.5 months, and those strategies can also continue into next year, into 24-25, then that actually helps bring that $41 million down by $10 million so that the additional gap closing would be $31 million rather than finding a whole new set of $41 million dollars of gap closing strategies. Likewise, if we identify $41 million in year 2, and those can continue, those savings strategies or additional revenues can continue into 25-26, then that will help us narrow that third year gap of 79 million to 38 million. So it would still be an additional stair step up in terms of identifying budget strategies, but it wouldn't be starting from scratch with an entirely new $79 million. So I just wanted to just mention the flow of the assumptions across the 3 years. And before going on to the next slide, maybe we can just take a pause there and see if directors have questions about that.
So just to clarify, to go back, even though we're putting 5 million into contingencies, essentially based on this slide, we have going forward is the ability to maintain that 5%, and in the process, we'll also be doing, in order to maintain that, be executing some budget reductions, but we'll have maintain the 5%.
Correct. Right. We'll actually be a bit higher than 5% at the end of this year. That's what we're projecting at the end of 23-24. We'll be above 5%, but we'll need that. We'll need every dollar of that additional fund balance to help absorb or reduce the reductions to come in years 2 and year 3.
Just to underline the important point Myung has pointed out here, if we can identify budget reduction strategies that will sustain through next year and in the following year, it makes the gap closing much more doable. So the challenge is identifying what those might look like, but while still maintaining that 5% goal on the ending fund balance.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Actually, I think you did a really clear explanation of why we want to move quickly as well. In terms of this year, it'll help us in the future. Someone long ago sort of said, when you're facing this type of revenue decline or recession or cuts, you want to build a ramp that helps you smooth it out and not a cliff that you sail off of. And so I think, in terms of getting out ahead of those cuts earlier is going to really help us. And then if we had some positive news, then we can. That'll be great. And if the news were to get worse, because again, these are all forecasts, and so I want to stress that as bad as this is, it could get better, it could also get worse, that we're a little bit ahead of the game for that reason. So thanks for the explanation.
Any other questions?
Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just asking if we had any other questions before you move on. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Hollins. I did want to mention one additional point, which I know has been actually, if we could stay on this slide, thank you. One additional point that I know has been discussed a fair amount recently, and I think for good reason, that as directors know, that third year of figures in this chart, the 25-26 year, is the first year of the next biennium. And the revenue assumption, the total resources assumption of $788 million there represents we feel, sort of a middle of the road estimate in terms of the state school fund in particular for what the trend might look like in terms of what happens in the upcoming biennium. if that number comes in, to Director Scott's point, any lower, then that will hurt us, that will hurt the projections. If the number comes in, on the other hand, higher as a result of increased attention and K-12 education becoming better prioritized in the next biennium, more awareness from the experience of PPS and Salem Kaiser and other districts in the state. I mean, if the policymakers see fit to have more money coming into K-12 education than we have estimated as a staff team, with advice, with some of the input from our engagement with the governor's team as well. But if the numbers in the next biennium come in higher, then that will certainly help us. That $79 million gap could be lower, and hopefully, I think folks would hope that it would come in materially lower, that gap could be reduced. But I just wanted to highlight that question about funding in the next biennium. The next couple of slides, I'm going to segue to Kristen, but I did want to say, and we've sort of highlighted this prominently in the materials that are posted in Board Book. There's a lot of work that's still ongoing, as I mentioned, and a fair amount of it still is in this realm of special revenues. So you see that note on the bottom of the slide, and you'll see that theme included multiple times in the various materials and attachments that are posted on the Board Book. And I'd love to ask Kristen just to comment on that further, on all of that further.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about special revenue this evening. After the adopted budget last June, we received word of additional resources coming from the state in the form of the Early Literacy Grant and our biennium allocation for fiscal year 23-24. That came to $3.2 million. The application has just opened for this grant, and it's retro to October 1st, so our teams are actively working on preparing and submitting the application on how we are going to utilize those resources, and it will be primarily focused in our instructional and student services content areas. The other changes we saw were under our integrated grant guidance to our student investment account and High School Success Measure 98. Due to additional revenue at the state level that was not anticipated, we received an additional $6.6 million in our student investment account, which was a joyful surprise to find. But unfortunately, we received news that there was a reduction of $1.1 million to our High School Success Measure 98 within the integrated grant guidance. We presented back in August some recommendations around how we are going to utilize and better blend and braid these resources for continued student supplemental programming. That is now under review again, given our agreed upon contract with PAT and the current negotiations. Special revenue doesn't have a contingency fund, so these really do impact the grants when we have these payroll cost increases. We're currently looking at how it will impact our grants and where we might need to shift and adjust, with the focus being better blending of braiding of all of our resources across special revenue, so there isn't a felt impact to our programming in current year. But we are evaluating what that impact looks like. There's quite a significant number of FTE among all of our special revenue grants. Right now, it looks like about 77 grants are impacted with the contract agreements that came about with the PAT negotiations. So we're in the final stages of examining what that impact is and where we can blend, braid, and adjust to ensure programming. And those changes and recommendations will come prior to the January 9th as I work with our program leads to understand how to adjust and shift at the current time. Next slide. So again, we're going to keep pushing on that. This is a preliminary preview, especially in regards to special revenue funds, as we're examining how we utilize these resources to their full advantage. So as we find more information, we'll be sending that off to this board to give you additional preview prior to the January 9th. We'll be working with other leadership members in the next week to identify the impacts and what the priorities are. PBS staff will continue to incorporate feedback from this session into that final recommendation come January 9th, and we'll be providing regular updates to you all around both general fund adjustments that we might find or special revenue as more comes to light over the next week. Next slide. That's what we have. Do you have any questions regarding special revenue at this point?
No, thank you.
Great, thank you.
That's
so
it for our whole presentation, Chair Hollins and directors. Thank you very much. We'll be back in touch before you soon.
All right, thank you. So look like next is fall maps results. Next, we will have a data dive into our fall maps data. Super.
Yes, directors, we're getting back into the cadence of looking at our student achievement data. So Dr. Adams is going to walk us through the fall map results.
Before you start, will you give us the window that the testing occurred?
Thank you for the question. September through early October.
So even though it's called winter, it's...
Because I call it I usually use the term when we actually talk about it, since it's,
Okay.
I mean, I know it's technically still fall.
Yeah, it's just,
but
well, I
December
wanted to make sure I had the right data point. Okay.
Important to clarify.
It's our first data point.
It is, yes, ma'am. All right, let's see, are we showing the slideshow? There we go. All right, I'm trying to be a good doobie and be able to run my own slides and talk at the same time. So thank you, Kara, for all the support. So here we go again, directors, looking at student achievement data from the fall. Very pleased to be with you here tonight. We have quite a few slides, but they should relatively go quickly. So I'm not trying to keep us here till midnight, although I could talk about data all day. So guiding questions for tonight's presentation are before you on the screen. Each fall, we come to look at how student achievement compares to last fall. We now have 3 falls worth of data, so we'll look at those trends in student achievement. And then there are always those of you who are curious about the demographics and the participation rates of students, and so that information is included at the end, the appendices, but I will not be going over that information in tonight's conversation. So first, I realized that we hadn't had this conversation about providing some background into the MAP assessment. And what you have before you is sort of an example of a student's experience through the assessment, item by item. The assessment is a computer adaptive assessment, so unlike traditional tests that may provide the same test items to all students, the MAP assessment changes the items a student sees based on their previous response and whether or not it was correct or incorrect. The test begins at student's grade level, and then it either increases or decreases in item difficulty based on student responses. This continues as the student tests until the student gets roughly 50% of items right or wrong, and at that point, the test ends and provides a scale score called a RIT score. The RIT score indicates where students are ready for instruction today at that point in time. The RIT score is an equal interval score, so we can do math with it. We can add them, we can subtract them, multiply, and divide them, which is always helpful. In PPS, we assess students in grades 3 through 8 with the MAP assessment in the fall and in the winter. The data analyses we can produce depend on the timing of the assessment. So in the fall, each student typically has a single score that they've just obtained. We examine achievement at a point in time, and we compare achievement at 2 different points in time, usually fall to fall, with each successive cohort of students. In the spring, each student typically has 2 scores within the same year, and that's when we examine growth during the year. And we can also compare growth trends over time, as you all have come to know. So we're looking forward to understanding what our growth looks like at some point in the spring. As is typical with our fall or winter data dive, I guess I should more correctly call it a fall data dive, as Director Edwards mentioned, we begin by examining percentile rank changes of students and student groups by grade level between this fall and last fall. On this chart and the chart that's coming after this, this current year is shown in teal, last year is shown in red, and the arrows indicate the direction of any change in percentile rank, either an increase, a decrease, or a sideways arrow that represents no change. In examining percentile rank changes in reading, English language arts, we note the differences in performance of our students by race and ethnicity, with Black students performing at or near the 25th percentile, Latinx students performing between the 25th and the 50th percentiles, and white students performing at or above the 75th percentile. Additionally, you'll note that within each student group, percentile rank changes and vary by grade level. In mathematics, we observe differential achievement and our predictable gaps by race and ethnicity, with Black students again performing below the 25th percentile, Latinx students performing at or near the 25th percentile, while white students are performing between the 50th and the 75th percentile. So we still, see those persistent gaps along the lines of race and ethnicity when we look at percentile ranks. For the next set of analyses, we'll be examining that average RIT score by subject, grade level, and race and ethnicity. We'll begin with reading and English language arts, and as a reminder, there's a scale score called a RIT score, and it's equal interval, and we like that because we can compare over time. Thank you for making it larger, Kara. On the slide before you, overall, we see performance for the average RIT for the fall of 2022 and 2023 are shown in shades of orange and brown with white text. The target RIT score for each grade level is shown in black with a horizontal line, and that value is also in black. As was the case last fall in reading, overall across grades 3 and 8, reading performance is exceeding the target expectations, that national benchmark. It is noteworthy to add that when we compare performance over time, reading performance increased overall slightly in grades 2 and 6. It's flat in grades 4 and 7, and it decreased in the other grades. Of course, we then begin to disaggregate our data, and we can see that our students of color, including our English language learners, are furthest from the grade level expectation as measured by the target RIT score in third grade of 187. Black students are showing an ongoing decrease in RIT score over the past 3 years, while Latinx students showed an increase this fall compared to last fall. Asian student achievement was flat over the past 2 years, and white students' achievement returned to the level it was 3 years ago. In grade 4, the all student group are multiracial students, are students who are multiracial and not historically underserved. White students and Asian student groups met or exceeded the expected RIT achievement score of 197. That said, we see again here that students of color are the furthest from the expectation, and that many student groups experienced a decrease in academic achievement this fall compared to last fall. In grade 5, we see the same student groups meeting or exceeding that target RIT score of 204, with the exception of our Asian students in the current year. At this grade level, Black and Latinx students' achievement decreased, and there were increases for Native American student achievement. On to the middle grades. In grade 6 for reading, we see performance increases from this fall compared to last fall for almost all student groups, with the exception of our English learners and our Native students. In grade 7, Native, Black, and white student achievement was flat this year compared to last year, while Asian students, Latinx students, and English learners saw a decrease in achievement. On a more positive note, students receiving special education services and multiracial students who are not underserved saw a year-over-year increase in reading achievement. And lastly, for reading English language arts in grade 8, we can see that Native students met the expected RIT score achievement level, while all other students of color unfortunately missed this mark. Next, we'll take a look at mathematics achievement in grades 3 through 8. And I just want to say, as I give less than exciting news, that one of my favorite parts about this presentation is finding adorable pictures of our students. I love looking through our Flickr for that. In the aggregate, our math data continue to show some encouraging signs. It's better than English language arts. First, you'll note that students exceeded the RIT score expectations this fall in all grade levels for the very first time. Previously, only students in the elementary grades met or exceeded their expected RIT score. This continues to be a promising sign of curricular implementation in teaching and learning and its use in mathematics. Overall, in math, student achievement is on the rise.
Dr. Adams, before you go on to the
Yes.
specific breakdowns, can you remind me, I know there are a number of stories nationally about what's happening. Can you remind me what's happening nationally with math?
Nationally, math performance is down.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought. So,
and we're seeing some
so
increases.
not only are we seeing the increases,
We're
but
bucking those national trends in math.
Thank you.
Which is great, because you typically, as you can see from the data, math achievement is usually lower than reading achievement. And so if we're bucking those national trends, hopefully we'll see some gap closure over time if we can continue that momentum. These are all students. Now we're going to start disaggregating. And just as a reminder, last year and the year before in math, all students weren't meeting these targets. So we are seeing some growth and a high tide raising all the students, all the ships in the aggregate. As was the case in reading, when we disaggregate our math map data, we see that our students of color are furthest from the grade level expectation. Where we saw some 2- and 3-year declines in reading, we see a different trend in grade 3 math. In grade 3 math, the all students, Asian, white, and multiracial students that are not underserved all met or exceeded the grade level RIT score of 188. While our students of color are not yet meeting this expectation, there are performance increases, and these are encouraging as the level of and the average RIT scores of students are increasing and not decreasing. In grade 4, of our underserved students of color, our black students and our multiracial students who are not underserved show some of the largest increases in academic achievement, increasing their average RIT score by 3 points. Additionally, students with disabilities showed a strong achievement increase of 5 RIT score points. In grade 5, we see mixed results in student achievement. Here, Latinx students, our English learners, our multiracial students who are underserved, and our students with disabilities showed increased performance, while Black, Native, and Pacific Islander students showed achievement decreases. This fall's 6th grade students were in grade 4 when they were first exposed to our then newly adopted mathematics curriculum. Here we can see that with the exception of Native students, all other students of color and other student groups, and by that I mean our English, specifically our English language learners, our multilingual students, and our students with disabilities, showed increased mathematics achievement. When we get to grade 7 mathematics, we can see that with the exception of our English learners and our Native students, all other students of color are showing an achievement rebound with increased math achievement this fall as compared to last fall. And then finally, for our MAP assessment in grade 8, we see similar trends to what we noted in grade 7. Almost all student groups again are showing an achievement rebound this fall and as compared to last fall. Exceptions to this increased performance include our English language learners and our Pacific Islander students. Overall, across the grade levels and student groups in math, I believe we're seeing the impacts of the adoption of our high-quality instructional materials being brought to life by our educators, as well as the implementation of our instructional framework. And as we bring this data dive to a close, I wanted to offer these conclusions. In the aggregate, our performance is exceeding that benchmark, and we know we need to disaggregate our data to understand the impact on our different groups of students. Percentile rank changes are showing more increases in math than in reading for this fall compared to last fall. And as has been the case during my time here, when we disaggregate the data, the gaps between and among student groups and achievement changes persist and vary among our students by grade level along the lines of race and ethnicity, and that's something that we continue to try to interrupt. And with that, I invite board directors for questions and conversation.
All right, any questions, thoughts, comments? So, you got a question? No, go ahead. Go ahead, I'll wait.
So just, I'm curious about our, thank you for the presentation, as always. Our use of the data as a district in terms of how we apply sort of supplemental resources. So, for example, on some of the slides with the disaggregated data, where there's some fairly significant gaps, let's just take reading, are those students getting high dosage tutoring, or what are the strategies that are specifically being used to support? I mean, I know the classroom teachers have the data, but what are they, what's our strategy to accelerate that so that?
Yeah, and certainly you're getting a district overview. I think we've talked previously about, and there's variability across the school portfolio as well. So there's a lot to learn from what's happening in particular school communities. But you know, a lot of our investments have been at identifying focal students in particular schools where we've had resources to provide supports and interventions. You named, you know, high dosage tutoring. Those have been with identified students. For example, Dr. Proctor?
Yeah, so out of some of our investments, as was mentioned, high dosage tutoring is one. Specifically, it really comes with our learning acceleration specialists who are working specifically with targeted students across a number of schools. This was another investment that we made, and we are seeing with our WIN blocks. We also have our WIN blocks that schools engage in, where they are, the teachers, classroom teachers are providing interventions to students. So these are some of the ways in which we're meeting targeted student needs specifically.
So just to follow up,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to remind board directors that WIN stands for what I need, or in some schools, what I need now.
Right.
Great, thank you.
So the teachers have individual scores to see who's made the gain and who hasn't. Okay.
Yes.
So just play that out for a layperson. So if you have a reading intervention specialist assigned to a school, you have, say, 60% of the fourth graders not proficient. What is the reading intervention specialist specifically doing?
The learning acceleration specialist?
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, so learning acceleration specialist is using a tiered approach where they are starting with the grade level standards aligned instruction, but also it involves some reteaching, some specific targeted intervention materials that are being used with students. I can't say specifically because it depends school by school, class by class, student by student, what specifically they're using.
So that would be instruction provided by the classroom teacher or by someone else?
The learning acceleration specialists. Yeah, they're a separate person from the classroom teacher. The intervention specialists are separate.
And we did deploy those staff members to buildings that had larger proportions of Black and Native students, trying to accelerate and support their continued growth and achievement.
Can I ask, it might be a really obvious question. So are these specialists working with teachers, or are they working with children, with
They're working with
students?
children.
Okay, so in small group.
Yes.
the resources that we're making available this year are the instructional coaches in our schools that are working with the educators.
Do you have any ideas how we would project out what these data might tell us for next year, seeing what the trends are? Are we able to predict with the trend line, because this is the third set of data, what we'd be looking at for next year and maybe even the year after that?
That's a great question. One of the things I'm interested in is understanding in the spring how student growth looks, to understand what impacts may have happened because of the work stoppage. Because I think we don't want to over or underestimate the impact that those 3 weeks and those days may have had on students, knowing that the last time we had some extended closures, we had some gaps that widened. So we'll know more. I wouldn't want to project at this moment, but we'll hopefully know more in the spring once we can see how students are growing during the school year.
And through correlation, we're able to, draw some dotted lines to what are some of our current practices that may very significantly be contributing to some of the positives that we're seeing in the data. And, as we go into a very difficult budget season and making some very, very difficult choices about where it is that we're going to need to make reductions, it's going to be really important, again, to ensure that we are maintaining a sense of momentum and accelerating forward with our instructional equity plan.
You saw this, what we're observing in the data, but where we're further along and deeper in the fidelity of implementation in our adopted curriculum, you're not seeing the results that other districts are seeing, backsliding. Not only are we holding, but we're starting to see gains. So you saw that, in particular, Dr. Adams pointed out at the 6th grade level, those students have now had 2-3 years of our iReady curriculum, for example, and we're starting to see the fruits and the traction of that. So our hope is, as we continue rolling out training, coaching, and implementing some other targeted tier 2 and 3 supports, that we'll continue to close some gaps. We'll continue to see the overall moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and another significant investment that supports that is teacher professional learning, right? So when we do adopt a new curriculum, when we do implement an instructional framework, we're supporting our teachers through targeted and specific development to support students in the classroom.
So I have a question. So where are we seeing the gaps, like in our classrooms, in relation to our reading scores?
I didn't hear the question, I'm
Where-
sorry.
Where are we seeing the gaps in our classrooms in relation to our reading scores?
That's a great question. I would want to possibly, I don't know if Ms. Howard is here, our Chief Academic Officer, but I know she and I have had some conversation about these data and how we're in a process at the moment where we're visiting schools and observing and understanding what's happening in classrooms. And I know there's been some conversation about shifting that to have a balance of more possibly reading observations for us to understand what's going on there. But I'll let Ms. Howard elaborate.
Good evening. Nice to see you all. I'm Christina Howard, and I'm the Interim Chief Academic Officer. Yes, we are shifting starting in January to observing classroom instruction focused on reading and math, and we have a whole process where we calibrate internally with building leaders and central office members, and then we go on what's called a learning walk, where we're able to observe our fidelity of implementation of our curriculum as well as grade level standards aligned instruction. And so that started in October, and we're continuing it throughout the year, and we'll have data points for 18 schools. And so that is one way that we're looking at fidelity of implementation and then making adjustments within our professional learning based on that.
So you listen to you talking about the win blocks, right? What I need to know now, and you mentioned, when we see something like with our reading, we figure out what they need. Have we assessed that and where we at with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Go ahead, Dr. Proctor.
Well, I'll start and then I'll let you continue. So the whole premise of a win block is to, so in classroom, teachers are assessing all the time, and the cycle with that is to understand where it is that the student has a gap in their learning, identify the intervention that's going to support them, apply the intervention, and then assess to see, are we bridging those gaps? So it is a approach of intervention where students are not missing core instruction, but being pulled into small group and provided skills and academic intervention practice so that they can recover and regain skill with some assessment that's happening along the way. Our learning acceleration specialists, for example, are keeping track of where each student is in the process as they are working with those students.
Sorry, so I'm trying to understand. So if a kid shows a need in reading, is the win block, is that an assessment tool to show what they actually need? Or is where I guess my question is,
it's a period of time.
So-
Is that what you're asking? Like,
Yeah.
when does it happen?
well,
What
I'm
is
asking
it?
so I'm assuming from what I'm listening to you saying, when is you find out a kid needs something and then you apply the win block? All right, I guess I'm asking how we assessing what that need is for that kid.
Sure. So the win block is a scheduled amount of time during the school day for small group reteaching and or intervention of students. And so we don't centrally direct that because we know our teachers are the closest to the students in the instruction and the curriculum materials. But what happens in schools is teachers identify students who are in need of additional skill development or reinforcement, and they either work independently or with other teachers, and they provide that needed intervention during the win block. So I don't miss my grade level reading class, but if I have and need some additional reading support, I can receive that through a win block. Ms. Howard and I, if we're both fourth grade teachers, could decide to work across our classrooms to regroup our students during the win block and I could work on some of my students and some of hers, and she could do the same to provide them that just-in-time educational support that they may need.
And how long we been doing this?
Ooh, see, now you asked me a question I can't answer. I don't know how long the win block has been in place. I know it's been in place as long as I've been here.
Okay, so I guess I'm now trying to see what's the fidelity of this. If we've been doing this for 2 years or however long it is, and we're still seeing the results we have we reassessed this process?
It's, so it's not a centrally directed process. Again, it's the educator that works with children that knows and understands where children have their learning gaps.
I get that. I'm just saying, based on when I see these numbers, and if these numbers are getting worse, are we reevaluating that scenario with our teachers or whoever we need to assess it with? Because I guess I'm looking at them, and I'm looking at them for the last 3 years,
So,
and it's not getting any better.
right, and I'll let Ms. Howard jump in, but it is also a process through which we provide that learning acceleration coaching, and that has just been implemented. The learning acceleration specialists, is in their second year of implementation, and it is a part of their process to kind of calibrate around the data. So it is a work in progress, and I'll have Christina Howard share a little bit more specifically on how we calibrate that practice.
Yeah, so one of the other things to note is that this year we've invested in every school having an instructional coach, and that instructional coach is receiving significant amounts of training. At the beginning of the year, they had training once a week on a Wednesday for the first 6 weeks, and then they moved to every other week. where they're coming together and they have cohort groups based by grade band to explore some of these things. We've also provided something called a centralized process around student learning analysis, where we're training the coaches to be able to take student work from classroom instruction and analyze what did we want to see happen, and then what is the student work showing, and how are we designing the reteach during that win block time to be tailored to what that specific student needs. And so that's something we've done this year that is different than in the past. And then we're training building leaders as well as coaches ongoing throughout the year on these protocols and processes and collecting data around that. And so that is one of our hopes, is if we have a way of analyzing that data and determining next steps to then use during that win time, that we will begin to see some outcomes shift because we're using data to drive that decision.
All right, last question for me. So when we talk about the training piece, what kind of timeline or timeframe are we looking to get everybody fully trained?
So right now, we are training the coaches on processes to deliver in PLCs, and each school has PLC times designated depending on grade band. And one of the other shifts for next year, thinking about for next year too, is that all middle schools will be on 5 of 7, and they'll have that embedded PLC time, which is professional learning communities, where teachers come together and they go through these processes. So prior to starting a unit of instruction, they're looking at the unit deeply, understanding what they need to teach, understanding the learning goals, understanding the assessment, and then throughout that unit, they're looking at lessons, and then they also look at the student work throughout the unit too to determine some next steps. So that is, we're working with the teacher leader, the coach. We're also working with building leaders, and then they go into the different PLCs, the professional learning groups, by grades, and they help and support them. And so this is a drastic shift this year. And so far, I mean, we have anecdotal data that it's really positive, and what we're hoping to do is then calibrate that with the learning walk data to say, okay, this is how we know this is impacting classroom instruction, right? Because that's what we want to be able to answer. And we want to be able to then translate the classroom instruction to student outcomes.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna ask again, what's the timeline in order to get those folks trained? Is that a year? Is that 18 months?
So all
What's
the
that
coaches have been
process?
trained, and then they're responsible for giving the training to their teachers in the PLCs. And all the building leaders have been trained as well.
So the next on the list is to train all the teachers, you said?
We're training the teachers through the coaches, right? So that it's sort of like the train the trainer model. So we want coaches to get the learning, and then we want them to deliver it at the school sites through PLCs, which is a collaborative time with teachers. It's called professional learning communities, where they come together and they go through these processes.
Okay, so coaches are trained. Now they're taking it to the school level, which they're gonna be training the teachers through the PLCs. And how long do we think that process will take to get the teachers trained?
So I want to help frame the understanding or the thought process about training, right? There's always an idea that if I take a particular training, it's one and done, and then I should be able to go right out and implement based on that training. In some cases, that happens, but then in other cases, there are times when a coaching and a supportive model will accelerate how an educator is able to implement a particular training. So just like students, there is coaching and support that is necessary, and over time, it's about refining a practice. It's about improving. So the training will occur, and it is, like you say, there can be a very specific time frame for when the training occurs, but then there's that piece of implementation, coaching, and support that will happen over time to refine the practice for students.
Oh, yeah, no, I get the fact that there's gonna be continual training, just like it's continual learning. I guess I'm asking, like, when you train a teacher, what's that timeline for them to at least get that baseline amount to enable to them to go and implement based off the training that you have. So for instance, we do trainer programs we did for our training piece. Well, there is a level of a baseline level that we expect all of our trainers to be able to teach the class for this trucking school. There's a baseline level. And so I'm just trying to figure out what is that baseline level and how long is it going to take to get those teachers to that baseline level?
So the training has occurred, is occurring over time, and we will get a date to you, a time frame, to help for us to kind of better define what you're describing. So the training is, again, chunked. It's not all sit and get in one time. There may be themes and topics that occur. So I think you're asking a question that is pretty nuanced, because it's not like, I can't even think of an example, but it's not like a specific time constraint type of approach that we take. It really is about chunked training by themes and revisiting and practicing and coaching. So it's cyclical, and over the course of a year, we have a plan of how we're gonna get to the support for all teachers. But if you're asking a question that says, what is the baseline of when the teachers have the bulk of the training in, we would have to, come back to you on that.
Okay, that was it for me.
Can I ask, at what point in this process you're describing is teacher feedback used in assessing what's working and what's not?
Well, I think in one of the ways we listen to teacher feedback is we were doing professional learning very differently last school year. We had it centralized, and what teachers and administrators told us very clearly is that they needed things that were just in time, relevant to them and their school site. And so that's why we adjusted things and went to a model where each school had an instructional coach that would work with their principal in order to turnkey the learning and make sure it's, for lack of a better word, personal, local, and immediate to the staff in that building and school community. So that is one of the ways that we've experienced that, is we've decentralized the model, and we are focusing on the process that Ms. Howard has spoken about is curriculum agnostic. So it doesn't matter if I'm teaching ELA or math or algebra or chemistry. I can approach my curriculum, I can unpack my unit, I can look at my assessment targets and my coming assessment, and then think about the student work along the way.
And do you have any hypotheses about why, or the math seems to be improving but not the reading? And I say hypotheses because we have to be careful between correlation, causation, right?
Sure. I believe that there has been what I feel like I hear from the field when I'm hearing from some of our educators and some of our building leaders is going into especially year 2 of the math adoption, there was a level of comfort with the materials and the resources that I don't know if we have that same level of comfort with the ELA resources, and I think that's something we need to continue to unpack, but that's just what I have heard and experienced.
Yeah, with new adoption, as we go into implementation, there is a gap in what pure and implementation with fidelity happens over time, and there's a learning space for our educators when they are taking on new curriculum. So the longer that they are using that curriculum consistently, the more improved their practice, the instruction that students are experiencing, and the learning that happens as a result.
So I would venture to say probably one initial hypothesis is we're in our third year of math implementation. We're only in our second year of language arts implementation. So, you know, I've been listening to the conversation and the discussion, and I think what I'm inferring is, and I don't think we would argue with it, our educational program isn't yet producing the outcomes we want to see. That's an obvious point. It's variable across student groups. It's variable across school communities, you know, and there's a role and responsibility at every level of the organization for that. I'm not in front of the students, but we do have a responsibility to lay out a theory of action about how we build professional capacity that will accelerate outcomes.
Right.
And so some of what we have put forth for investment that the board has, you know, approved is making sure we have an apparatus as a central office. And this year, because I heard the question, like, at what point do you sort of jettison a strategy and implement a new one that might get us more bang for the investment? You know, this year it was instructional coaches. So as a central office, one thing we noticed is we have to have resources or investments that provide direct intervention and support to identified students that are furthest behind. And we have to have investments and interventions to make sure we're investing in adult development and working with supporting our educators. So coaches was one, learning acceleration teachers and learning specialists has been an area that we've invested in last year and the year before in some cases. And those are interventions, those are tier twos. That's not speaking to the core instruction that every one of our educators needs to be differentiating for diverse learners in their classroom.
Okay.
And the conversation about this data does need to happen locally at every campus level. That's exactly the conversation that we want instructional leadership teams to be having as a group of educators with their school leaders and now with their coaches and other staff that have been deployed to talk about grade level by grade level, class by class, what are we observing? What is it that's being impactful? Where are we seeing growth and gains? Wonderful. How do we tackle sort of the next areas within the resources that we have here at the school level? Our job is to try to lay out how do we organizationally sort of make sure that that work is, those conditions are supported across every one of our schools. So that is the work of continuous improvement. So, you know, we're always sort of checking ourselves for, you know, how do we get a glimpse at whether the activities that we're spending time and effort in are actually making a difference. There's a few ways that we do that. It might be instructional rounds with our school leaders going around. It might be learning walks to see how curriculum implementation is going. Of course, we would expect our school leaders are in classrooms every single day, giving formal and informal feedback to our educators, and maybe that our educators themselves have opportunities to peer observe and work with each other as a department or as a grade level. So this is our work, and hopefully as our school communities and ILTs work through their annual school improvement plans, that they're reflecting on what is being impactful and where does more work need to happen, that they can adjust at the campus level. Where you've seen some spotlights that we've featured here at the dais, where schools, you know, we have said, look, there's something happening here. There's promising practices, and we're sort of bringing around other school leaders to see, look what's going on here. They're seeing a rate of acceleration across student groups in some content areas that maybe not other schools are seeing. Let's check it out. Let's ask questions. Let's observe it. Let's learn from it. And that's what we're trying to encourage, is what does that system level professional learning community look like as a learning organization, so that we can see these bar graphs heading in the right direction. You see that, and you heard Dr. Adams say earlier, you know, we've rebounded in some areas. Math's a little more concrete, so what's happening there, you know, maybe it's the I-ready curriculum, maybe it's our teachers, you know, depth of understanding in math instruction, maybe just kids are picking it up a little easier with the material. But we're seeing a rebound there, and in some cases, in some schools, they're getting sort of forward of the herd, and so they're seeing something even better happening. So that's the conversation, that's the dialogue we're trying to have here. I know that our principal supervisors are having with each of their cohorts of leaders. And we certainly expect that at the school level, we know, you know, that there's dedicated time for those conversations as well.
Absolutely. And just to kind of go back to Director Hollins, your conversation about timeline of training, and I expressed that it's really cyclical and theme-based. But if you, for example, when we adopted new curriculum, all the teachers received the training within that summer, the months, right, within months, by August, in our August Teacher Institute. That was the core of the training. And so all teachers were trained in all of the adopted curriculum. Now, the other trainings that we allude to are more about practice, about unpacking lessons, about differentiating instruction, for example. Those are about instructional practice, but the core training around curriculum, that happens immediately, and we address training for all teachers. So I don't know if that's helpful.
So when you do this core training, what are you looking for them to get with this core training? Like, it's got to be, like for us, our standard, is making sure they have the baseline of
Yes,
pre-trips,
absolutely.
post-trips, yada, yada, yada. What are we looking for when they're getting this training?
So for the curriculum adoption training, it's to understand the new curriculum.
Right, yeah. We are looking for, at the beginning of a new adoption, we train them on all of the nuances of the curriculum. And so then when we go out on these learning walks, we're looking for implementation with fidelity of the curriculum. And when I say with fidelity, I'm talking about the specific look-fors within the curriculum that we would know that's happening within that set of curriculum. So for example, in Wit and Wisdom, we would be looking at the pacing, where is a teacher at in comparison to the scope and sequence. We'd be looking at the nuances of ELA. So we have, within grade level standards aligned, we're looking at the different teacher moves and student moves that are happening in the class. And so that is what we're looking for to see, are we on the path to implementing with fidelity our adopted curriculum as per what we just trained teachers on, right? So we want to see the correlation between those two things to see if it's actually happening in the classroom.
And then those trainings are reinforced throughout the year with PLC conversations and such. So that goes back to what I alluded to again, which was it's not quite one and done, but the baseline of this is the curriculum, this is the flow of the curriculum, these are the units within the curriculum, this is how you best use the curriculum. They could take that training, that initial training, and then begin planning and implementing lessons using that tool.
Okay, I have a lot more questions, but I know we kind of short on time. So, any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I mean, I have a lot of questions, but I'll just email it to you.
Yeah, I'll just
directly.
email the rest of mine.
I would love to have the questions that you email so we can all have the benefit of your questions and the answers.
Chair Hollins, I was just going to ask, this next item is not a vote, it's just an informational update. Is it possible to put that off until a future meeting? Because I know we still have some votes and other items, and it's 9:30.
Do we have public comment on
I didn't see any.
I would support, you're talking about Southeast Guiding Coalition? I would support that, just, it's an important agenda item for Southeast Portland, and doing it at 9:30 at night in sort of a rushed way seems, like it'd be better
So
to.
is everybody okay with moving that to the next meeting?
Because there's a lot of things I want to address in that as well. so-
Okay, all right, so we will,
Dr.
send-
Franco, you're off the hook for another meeting, okay.
We will send that to the next board meeting. We will table that, right? Is that the right word? Table that to the next board meeting? All right. All right, so we got the first reading of, you want to just skip over those two?
They're actually,
The
no, we
first-
just get them first read,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
First reading of the policy. So we have first reading of 3 policies. Director Brim Edwards. Do you want, go ahead.
Okay. So we have, the policy committee has forwarded 3 policies for, recommended 3 policies for first readings or for introductions. The first one is the district performance auditing policy. At the November 30th meeting, the policy committee reviewed and recommended proposed changes to the district performance auditing policy. Actually, it was a recommendation from the auditing committee chaired by Director DePass. At one point in time, 5 or 6 years ago, the policy had contained the language that had membership, including 2 community members on the audit committee. And in one of the revisions of the policy, that inadvertently was dropped, and so we're just adding it back in so that we can benefit from having 2 community members, often with audit experience, on the committee. The second.
Can I ask a very quick question on that one? And I'm assuming this has already been answered, but it's allowable to have community members vote as part of a committee that's making recommendations to the board? Because they're already public meetings, so everything's fine?
And they're just recommendations.
Okay, just confirming that we've double-checked that. Thank you.
The next policy for the first reading relates to religious and cultural observances. This is a brand-new policy. For several decades, community members, staff, families have pointed out that because of the different religious and cultural beliefs in our district that's diverse, that our calendar doesn't always reflect the opportunity for our students and staff to celebrate those. And there's always a balancing act between the exercising of religious and cultural beliefs with our constitutional duty to preserve schools from religious entanglement. We have developed a calendar which we think respects the diverse nature of our school district, and then we have developed a policy that basically provides more context for the calendar, and it actually has 3 main areas. It talks about excused absences and other accommodations for families and students and staff. It also has a section in which we talk about how we identify major religious holidays and cultural observances, whether it's back to school nights, all school assemblies, how we try and avoid scheduling school-based activities on days where some of our students might not be able to participate because they're with their families. Same thing with staff. And then the third section just relates to non-district sponsored events. We have less control about those, whether that's OSAA or outdoor school, but our advocacy to try and be respectful of the diversity of celebrations within our student body. So that is a brand-new policy. It's recommended out on a unanimous vote from the committee. And then third, there is a set of revisions to the student enrollment and transfer policy. That's 4.10.051. It's a fairly limited set of changes that we're recommending, and this came out of the something that came out of the audit committee, and that essentially families would no longer use the petition process to request a transfer to a focus option program after the lottery closes, but instead there's an open enrollment process. And the reason why we need to get it, thank you for letting us have it first read tonight, is that we are trying to get this approved and in place before the 2024 middle and high school transfer process. And obviously these changes, if people want to make other changes to student enrollment and transfer, we can make those at a later date in the spring, but need to move this now so we have it all ready for the enrollment process.
All right. So these policies proposed to be revised or rescinded will be posted on the board website, and the public comment period is a minimum of 21 days. Contact information for public comment will be posted with the policy. The board expects to hold a second reading of these revision policies, which will be a vote to approve them on January 9th. All right, next is the consent agenda. Board will now vote on the consent agenda. Board members, if there are any items you would like to pull for discussions, we will set those aside for the next time we meet. I understand, Director Brim-Edwards, you have an item to flag for the board before we vote?
No, I'm just going to notice that I'm going to submit something for a written statement for the record.
Okay, Ms. Bradshaw, is there any changes to the consent agenda?
No.
All right, so no items to be pulled. Do I have a motion and second to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second?
Director Green motions, Director Brim Edwards seconds. Is there any board discussion on the consent agenda? All right, the board will now vote on resolution.
Excuse me, may I just note that on item 18C, that the numbering is off? Resolution 6709 should read 6809. It's just a technical.
I think that's just in board book.
Yeah,
That it's
it's in
listed
board
wrong.
book,
Yeah,
yeah.
the resolution, I think, is accurate.
I just looked at
Yeah.
it just to confirm that the resolution posted does have the correct resolution number. It's just the title that is backwards.
Good catch, though. All right, the board will now vote on resolution 6807 through 6811. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All opposed? Student Director Silverstein, please indicate your vote.
Yes.
All right, hearing no abstentions, the consent agenda is approved by a vote of 7-0, with Student Director Silverstein unofficially voting yes. All right, next is we have comments from our union partners.
Hello, go ahead, hi. Do we have to spell our name and all that stuff at the, no, okay. First of all, we wanted to deliver a holiday card to you guys from SEIU and PFSP, from members and community supporters who came to our party on Sunday. So here it is. Yeah, can you hold it up?
I do good at Vanna
Yeah. Don't be the district that stole Christmas. And then the inside says, yeah, it's right before Christmas, but we're getting hot. Our bills have gone up, but our paychecks have not. Delays and excuses will not pay the rent. We need a fair contract. Our patience is spent. Yeah, we'll leave it.
I have to say, I love the creativity and the art.
Yep. I'm a little tired, I'm sorry. Most of us have to get up like in the 4:30, 5 o'clock hours, so this.
Every day.
I'm sorry?
Every day.
I was like, I have to get up at 3, so I understand.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah, you guys too. I guess I just kind of feel like you call us union partners, and if we really want to partner, it's really hard for us to stay up this late when we have to do our job tomorrow. So I'm not just saying we should be first to be first. There's a reason, so. I want to give you a holiday update. As you know, SEIU has been in bargaining with the district since February. This has taken a toll on the bargaining team and our members. When we have scheduled bargaining sessions with the district, we come to the table prepared, but that's not usually the case with PPS. I want to tell you about the real ways that bargaining at a snail's pace is affecting our members. We did not get our annual raise in July because we're working without a contract. And because we didn't get our annual raise, we, the lowest paid workers at PPS, are struggling more than ever. Many of us are worried about not being able to afford a nice meal for the holidays and instead have to rely on food boxes. Because our wage increase has been delayed by 6 months and it isn't coming anytime soon, my family does not know how we are going to pay our rent increase that will go in effect on January 1st. Our rent is going up $200 a month. That may sound like chump change to you guys, but For us, it's actually a real fear. Not only because if we cannot pay it, we won't have a home, which means we have to move out of Portland and move our kids out of the schools that we are struggling to pay our rent to keep them in. PBS has rejected our proposal that cost of living increases should include retroactive pay for the 6 months we've been waiting. So most of us will have a hard time even getting back on our feet once a raise does kick in. I'm not sure if any of you or PPS administration have ever had to worry about feeding your kids or keeping a roof over their heads, but it's scary and it's real. I'm guessing it is a reality that is hard to imagine unless you've actually lived that fear. When the teachers' strike was settled and we learned that we must report to work December 18th to 22nd, we were shocked. We were shocked because our contract says that even though PPS School Board has the right to change the school calendar, they must talk to us about it first. This didn't happen, so we had to request that PPS come to the table to figure this out. We had to request. So 2 weeks ago, we did just that. We asked that our members get paid time and a half to compensate for the fact that we would have to report to work on such short notice and when many of us have other plans. So let me explain that. So nutrition service workers do not accrue any vacation time. We are constantly told we need to plan our vacations, our appointments, all the things during winter break, during spring break, during the summer. The district was very clear that they would not pay any extra incentive money for an employee, any employee across the district for that week. It was a hard no, and we didn't push it. Well, we found out on Friday that substitute teachers will be making time and a half next week. It was such a slap in the face. We get nothing extra, nothing. I want to be clear, we're very happy that the substitute teachers are getting paid time and a half. They deserve it, and it's the right thing to do. But once again, the lowest paid workers get nothing, and we were lied to. Not even a small bonus of $100 or maybe a turkey to bring home to our families for the holidays. When we brought this up in bargaining yesterday, the district spokesperson said he had no idea that substitute teachers were getting paid time and a half. How did he not know that? How can it be that the PPS bargaining spokesperson was not told about this? Who is communicating because they aren't doing a good job? If I didn't do my job, I'd get fired. We will be so short-staffed next week. We have been told to order all paper trays and all plastic utensils because most kitchens will have one person. It seems like none of this was thought through, or maybe it was, but perhaps the board didn't really care about the impact working next week would have on us. I'm not making my kids go to school next week just for the point of it. There's not going to be quality education. You should see the list of people that will be out, teachers, students, everyone. So it'll be checking off the days that we have to, but it won't be quality education. So, and that's not the teacher's fault, and we don't blame them, so I want to be clear about that. I would love to invite any of you to come to my school next week. I'm at Bridger Creative Science. The shift starts at 10, but lunch is from 11:23 to 12:50, so it's not too bad. You'll have to stay to help clean the tables, wash the dishes, clean up and prepare the food for the next day, put the student cards back. There's all kinds of things. So please let me know if you can come help. I'd love that. And actually there's, 9 of you? So, and we have like almost 90 schools, so we could find somewhere for all of you to go if you would like to help. We have heard and seen some helpful signs that PPS is paying attention to our struggle, and that's important to bring up too. As school board members, you have an opportunity to put things back on track. It's time to settle a fair contract now, so we don't have to keep dragging this out and risk another strike. We don't want to strike. We want to be done. find a superintendent now that it's going to be an open position that is connected to our community and that will lead us in a positive direction. Do the independent audit of sexual independent audit of sexual harassment complaints our union coalition has called for months. I want to end tonight by saying that our goal is to settle a contract now. Put it all on the table so we can move forward and do our jobs. We're not trying to play games. We just want to be done. The divide between workers and administration and board members is not what we want. Frankly, I think it's toxic and it's wrong. We don't think the district wants this either, but it's time that you start showing us that we have your support, really and truly, not just listening to us at board meetings, but actually doing something. Settle our contract fairly and now. I also hope that everyone thinks about the lowest paid workers next week as we continue to serve our kids without any additional compensation during the holiday season. And I just want to say one more thing. When my family and I were pushed out of our native San Francisco 8 years ago, my son was in San Francisco Unified, and it was wonderful. We had an awesome school, everything, but we couldn't afford to be there anymore. And when we were coming here, everyone said to us, "Oh my God, the schools are going to be so much better in Oregon." And I was really pumped up, and I just feel so sad that that's not the case. But I also don't want to leave the district right now because I want it to be better and I want to help get it better. And I want to work with you guys to make it better. And to make it better, you have to lift up us at the bottom, not just at the top. Lift us up. Thank you.
Hello, PPS. I'm going to read a testimonial from one of our workers. Amidst the strike and subsequent confusion put forth by non-student facing executives, we must remember one of our most consistent issues that without fail will continue to happen as long as nothing is done about it. Sexual harassment of staff and students in our community. I will include a trigger warning for some disturbing content I will be reading. Last week, an employee reached out and talked to me about her direct supervisor. These are the kind of comments I am forced to listen to on a daily basis, including lewd and inappropriate comments about other teachers and administrators in the building, and lewd, objectifying comments about staff in the CSA office. Comments from when he was talking about a sports coach that got a sexual harassment lawsuit because he touched a female student's face and made it about her being black, and in doing so, he touched my face as an example of how she was touched while telling me this man got sued when all he did was this. Comments about trans employees, that's just a man in a dress. Comments about students such as, yeah, I can't go into the locker room, there's a bunch of naked girls in there. Even though I really want to, I am not allowed. Do we think this is little h harassment or big H harassment? For those who don't know, I am directly referencing the language used to train our SEIU employees on whether management is responsible to deal with harassment. I'll continue with her testimonial. When I complained to him about a coworker sexually harassing me in a different way, all he did was pull him into the office, call him an arrogant little shit, and let him go with no consequences or actions taken on behalf of my safety. The final straw was the comments about voyeuristic behavior towards students, coupled with unsolicited comments about rape for the 4th time throughout the duration of my employment. Enough is enough. We have also heard from students as young as 5th grade having situations like this be a part of their learning environment. Another employee's harassment happened with a witness in the room and a student in the room and a camera on them for another incident. She reported and was told that it would be too much of a hassle to have an employee go over the video footage and find the proof. Yet another employee had told me that her first month on the job, she was told whatever she reports in confidence to her manager will get passed on to the offender, so no one is safe. The employees and community members who have reached out and talked to us are doing so in the face of great uncertainty, and they know they are taking a risk by doing so. These workers and students have the courage to reach out and support each other. We should be supporting them, protecting them, and thanking them for helping us progress as humans. I would like to mention for the listener who might be feeling alone and afraid, you're not by yourself. There's lots of people who have gone through what you are facing, and when you are ready, we will be there to walk next to you. You are not alone. Our hope is to keep shining a light on this issue and speaking about it, as it seems like the only other method we have tried as a district is pretending it's not a problem and responding to victims with an automated, we have a zero tolerance policy response. I think it's time to try something different. We can actually practice equity and inclusion and join a community that speaks the truth about our culture. We can do better.
Hello. My name's Angela Bonilla, president of Portland Association of Teachers. I was working on remarks earlier today, and I couldn't make them happen. Trying to kind of find a flowery, beautiful way to kind of talk through the bargaining experience we just had just didn't come to me, and it felt like it became a way to try to tell a story that will then get contested later. So I just wanted to use this time to lift up our labor union partners. I appreciate the comments before us and want to make it very clear, you know, when we were bargaining starting in October over Article 9, and then January over the successor contract, we made it very clear. We need to settle. We need to get to a settlement as soon as possible. We do not want to strike. We want to be at work, and we want to get a contract that is fair. And we were unheard. When we were getting to the last few hours of bargaining, and it became clear that unless we agreed to full days back, we would not get signatures on the TA as a whole. And so we had to bargain the return to work at the same time as a tentative agreement. We said, well, what is the plan for our labor partners who will also have to work that week? And we were told, well, yeah, it's going to be pretty expensive. After having almost 11 months of bargaining, being told that there is no money for anything. We were told that our substitute unit, which is also represented by PAT, would get paid time and a half in order to fill the absences that we were concerned would happen because it was such short notice. And it's gross. It's gross to know that as the highest paid workers in our unionized workers in our district, that we are continued to be prioritized over folks who are struggling to make rent and to be able to afford groceries, that they had to make the demand to bargain as opposed to that bargain being brought to them when that was literally mentioned during our bargain as an issue and a concern. It is upsetting to know that there was a response of, well, we just have no more money and that sucks, and no one's getting paid extra when that is untrue. I think it's really important to recognize that I keep being asked about how do we heal? How do we repair the relationship between PAT and the workers in the community in this district? And what I find really hard to talk about when we talk about healing is that there has to be truth when there is also reconciliation. And when I continue to come to these spaces and hear from educators and other workers that there continues to be a conversation without them about them, or that there are decisions made that don't bring in the folks who are being impacted, but we continue to pretend everything is fine, and that this is in the best interest of everyone who goes and works and serves in this district, it is really hard to find a way to move forward. Restorative justice maintains that that's an opt-in process, that we have to decide that we're ready to rebuild and heal. And I think a lot of us, especially with the rushed return to work that was placed upon us in terms of how this deal came to be, I think it's really, really painful to continue to be asked by not just managers, but also reporters, like, how are we going to fix this relationship? I think that's the responsibility of the folks with institutionalized power. What work is this district going to do to make us want to love working here again? Because a new contract is great, but not when I see my colleagues struggling to be able to afford to live in the city, when we know that you have no schools without teachers, but teachers can't do this work without our support staff. And I asked, what are you going to do to support our labor partners? Because we can't keep kids safe if we don't have our paras and our EAs, and we can't keep them fed and safe and in clean environments if we don't have our nutrition services and our custodial. And again, the response was, we will figure it out. It's going to cost us money. So I just want to, I usually start with kudos, but again, I was having a really hard time writing my remarks. I just want to, again, state that PAT puts our full membership behind our union partners in their bargaining. We hope that they can get a settlement sooner than we were able to get a settlement, and that they don't have to resort to their legally protected rights as unions to withhold their labor for a seat at the table. And I hope that as a board, as what we hoped would be the public accountability check to our district, that y'all take this conversation seriously, because it wasn't taken seriously when we brought it in January and February and March and April and May. And it wasn't taken seriously until halfway through the strike. I mean, I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to say that I just hope that we can get a contract for our union siblings without more harm being inflicted upon the relationship that we are trying to maintain between our unions and this district, and that no more harm be caused to our students because we can't get the respect that we deserve just for being workers here. And so thank you for the time. Thank you all for speaking up. And PAT stands behind our union partners, and will do what it takes to make sure that y'all get a fair contract too.
It's late, so I'll try and be brief. We're grateful to come before you today with schools reopened and our students returned to classes. We're grateful to be here alongside the other labor partners. I don't think it comes as a surprise to the board at this point to hear that the loss of the first week of winter break has been a shock to our members, especially given the very little notice that we had. Much like SEIU, we have employees who work 192 days, who work 202 days, who work 210 days, who work 225 days, who do not accrue vacation, who expected to have that week off, who bought non-refundable plane tickets, who have plans to visit family, who are going out of the country, and who are now being told that they need to adjust their lives. We were given less notice than we would have been if we were told that we were converting President's Day to a work day, to convert an entire week before the holidays. Our members worked every day of the work stoppage. Many of our members worked full days the whole time. When we found out that not only were PAT substitutes being offered time and a half, but also non-represented substitute school administrative assistants and paraeducators who do the exact same work, the exact same time, side by side as our represented workers. We're being given time and a half pay, but that no incentive would be offered to our representative members. We are feeling extremely disrespected. I'm sorry. Unlike SEIU, our bargaining unit has not been able to come to an agreement with the district. So we're currently sitting at almost 10 o'clock at night on Tuesday before this week is implemented on Monday, with no official agreement to the district. We've been told that our members are so invaluable to the district operation of the schools that the district cannot offer to approve blanket leave requests. We hope the board remembers how invaluable we are when it's time to come to mediation. Thank you.
All right, meeting's adjourned.
Actually, Chair Hollins, just before you adjourn, I wanted to thank our union representatives for coming and talking to us tonight. And I want to recognize how challenging the work stoppage has been, particularly for SEIU union members, but actually all of them. And I think it's worth acknowledging that. Work stoppages are really hard for everybody. They were hard for our community, they were hard for our families, they're hard for you as well. The district has really tried to focus on our students in terms of what's going to be best for them, in terms of making up for that learning loss. And I think we are asking the adults in our schools to sacrifice as a result. I think it's worth acknowledging that sacrifice. And I just want to say that this is what happens in a work stoppage. And I think the other thing I would say is I wish we didn't have to pay substitutes time and a half in order to come back. And I wish some of our PAT members were also focusing on our students in terms of being there in the week that we need them to be there. And with that, we can adjourn the meeting, Chair Hollins.
All right, meeting adjourned.